can always rely on the great British weather, can't you? A bank holiday weekend, and with it comes rain. Welcome to Silverstone for the second round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. David Addison and Hayley Coxon at a soggy Silverstone. Weather in this country has been really good the last week until yesterday when it was grey and cold, and today it's been raining on and off all day. It's a wet circuit, it's a slippery circuit, it is a grid of 50 cars looking forward to the second round of the championship. Similar weather here to that we had at Monza, where it was a safety car start, a fascinating race, won in the end by the BMW of Maxime Martin, Marcus Paltela and Bas Linders. From Silverstone, we head hopefully to the sunshine of France. Paul Ricard is the next stop, then the Spa 24 hours before we go to Nürburgring in Germany, and then to the Spanish circuit of Navarra to round out the season. Well, the home of the British Racing Drivers Club is Silverstone, the home of the British Grand Prix, and the real die-hard fans are here, sheltering from the weather, ready for the start of round 2 of the championship. The Pro Cup, after their win at Monza, being headed by Linders, Martin and Paltela, with Marco Bononomi absent this weekend. He's on testing duty at Le Mans. Edward Sandstrom and Lawrence Van Tour second. Anthony Kumpen, Koen Wouters and Carl Wendlinger's Mercedes third in Pro Cup, ahead of the Ferrari of Stefano Gattuso, Davide Arrigon and Daniel Zampieri. And that was a car that had dramas in the free practice session earlier on in the weekend when the car went off the road. The grid's starting to take shape. The Pro-Am Cup is being headed by the Ferrari of Eugenio Amos, Alessandro Bonaccini and Giacomo Petrobelli. Ludovic Badet, Jean-Luc Bobelic and Patrice Goalard, who've had a fairly challenging weekend so far. They're second in the points. The absent team, Hans-Guido Riegel, Mike Stursberg and Richard Westbrook, lie third. Westbrook's in America racing in Grand Am this weekend, the other two absent as well, so that car will drop down in the championship within the Pro-Am Cup. And of course the third class is the Gentleman Trophy. Well, a regular front runner in that, Georges Cabin, was in strife at Monza when the car spun. He's withdrawn from this race because the engine poured all its oil over the circuit in the pre-qualifying session yesterday, and pole position is to the car that's second in the championship, the Dodge Viper of Gaël de Sudier, Luc Paillard and Gilles Vannelet. They trail the oldest car on the grid, the Ferrari 430, but won at Monza. So looking down on the grid, you can see the boards there showing where the different class pole position drivers are, and there you can see the number 20 Ferrari that is run by the Sofrev team. It's going to be started by Patrice Goalard. Experienced driver is Patrice, and he's been around Silverstone many, many times, so he should be well versed in starting in these conditions. We are told it is going to be, like Monza, a safety car start, expected to be round about 3 laps behind the safety car, just so the drivers can find out where all the puddles are, and then the cars will be unleashed into the race proper. But of course all those laps under the safety car at the very start will count towards the 3 hours. The format for the Blancpain Endurance Series you may be familiar with, but in essence 3-hour races, teams with 2, in some cases mostly 3 drivers. There are 2 mandatory pit stops, and if you can get the fuel to stretch to the hour mark, then that breaks up the race, but very neatly indeed. Splash and dash for fuel not really acceptable these days, because regulations are that you must release the seat belts for the driver, not completely undo them but loosen them, so that if there's a pit lane fire the driver can leap out more easily. So you can't really do a splash and dash as used to be in the old sense of throw the fuel in and the driver accelerate away, because you lose time having to tighten up the driver's belts again. So fuel a little bit more key, but not in the wet, to be fair. I don't think anyone's going to struggle for fuel at all. 42 Ferrari again in the Pro-Am Cup, started by the Irishman Emmett O'Brien. Shares that car with the French Clio racer Kevin Despanas and Alto Santamato, who went pretty well in the pre-qualifying session yesterday. So the national anthem being played here at Silverstone, of course, as part of the Diamond Jubilee celebrations, and they're looking down onto the grid. Daniel Zampieri, pole position at Monza. Yesterday's qualifying, fascinating sessions that we had, Q1, Q2, Q3, all giving plenty of drama and plenty of surprises, and we'll come to the story in more detail no doubt later. But Adam Carroll, ready for his first ever GT race, was fastest, driving for Vita 4-1 in the BMW in the Pro Cup in Q2, and it was a very good time that nobody was able to get near in that session, irrespective of the fact that Adam is a very successful single-seater driver, completely new to GT cars. He was fastest, and only towards the end of Q3, when his teammate, co-driver Frank Kechler, went 34 thousandths of a second quicker, did pole position change. Kept with the same car, but to a different driver. There's Nick Katzberg, who is going to be racing for the Race Art team in the Pro-Am Cup. with the BMW Z4. We've seen Nick, of course, successful in FIA GT3 and GT1, former Eurocup Megane trophy winner. Jordan Groger will start in 88 McLaren. As of Monza, you might recall that, rather red-faced, he lost it behind the safety car. To be fair, the McLarens at Monza were really struggling with the turbo coming in very, very suddenly when you applied the power, and that's what caught out Jordan and one or two others. He put the power down behind the safety car and the back just snapped away from him. So co-drivers Rob Barth, who's there leaning into the car, and Leon Price never got a turn behind the wheel. All the McLarens, though, this weekend have made big strides forward, looking much more competitive, and it was going to be a McLaren on the front of the grid, but I'm told that the ART car, the Duncan Tappy and Gregoire de Moustier car, has had to be withdrawn. The only reason given, and this has just arrived on a piece of paper, is personal reasons, according to the team, but we know no more than that. So there's a bit of a mystery around that car, because it was going tremendously well yesterday, but sadly looks like it's missing now from the grid. There's the BMW that's going to be started, car 36 by Stéphane Lemeray, the very experienced Belgian journalist who has done a huge amount of GT and sports car racing over his years, and doing a full season this year at Blancpain, which is good to see, because Stéphane drives all these different cars really with his journalistic hat on. Rarely does he get to do a full season, but it's good that he is going to do the full year. Number 50 Ferrari, Jack Gerber, and he will start. And you may notice there a different co-driver for this weekend. It was Marco Ciocci at Monza. It's Raffaele Giammaria this weekend. Raffaele, who was a winner last year at Monza in a Porsche for Auto Lando Sport. But he, for this weekend, will be partnered by Jack Gerber, Raffaele Giammaria, one to watch. So 3 minutes to go before the start of the race. Looking down onto the grid 14 there, which is the Marius Ritschke's started Mercedes. That is another of the cars to watch within the Pro-Am category, where it really is absolutely wide open as ever. The driver's getting a little bit of air into the car, even though the weather conditions are cold and nasty. You'll find that the windscreens are going to steam up. There's Christopher Mies, who starts in the number 1 Audi. The Audis yesterday, surprisingly, didn't really shine. They struggled in qualifying at Monza, but they got there in the end. They picked up the pace as the race went on. Maybe it'll be the same here. 12th on the grid is where you find car number 1. And just alongside it there is the Von Ryan Racing McLaren, which is going to be started, number 60 by Matt Draper. And this car went really well yesterday in the hands of Matt, his brother Julian, and particularly Stephen Jelly, who you can expect to do the last stint. Matt Draper starts. Stephen Jelly, former Formula 3 and touring car race winner, and Porsche racer of repute more recently. It's going to be another car to watch. 37 in the hands there of Jochen Haberts, lining up 10th on the grid, the car he shares with Andrew Danilov and Simon Knapp, and the BMW Z4s, which didn't really seem to have the pace, so the team said, at Monza. Still one, run by this team, Mark VDS Racing. This is very much more a BMW circuit. Mark VDS winning the race here last year. Mike Hesmans, you saw car 4 starting. He's 9th on the grid. 8th on the grid is where Koen Wouters will start, the Belgian actor and musician. Television presenter. The car shared by Anthony Kumpen and Carl Wendlinger, and Mark Hayek, the CEO of Blancpain, will start number 24. The car missed Monza. Mark was busy with business commitments, but it's good to have it back on the grid here. Mark Hayek sharing with Peter Cox, of course. United Autosports going much better this weekend. Matt Bell is going to start in number 22, and this is the car that he shares with David Brabham and Alvaro Parent. And then to line up alongside, there it is, number 40, Marc Soord, switching from the sister car for this weekend to join Jérôme Demey and Greg Gilbert. Marc Soord, whose racing career goes back to the very early 1970s. Number 9 is Rob Belter, starting directly ahead of his brother, sharing with Michael Wainwright. The car is going to fly, I think, in Rob's hands. And there is Gregoire de Moustier. Now, contrary to what we were told, therefore, the car is on the grid, which is good news. Gregoire de Moustier and Duncan Tappy is there, so it's not the ART car. We're aware that MTech have withdrawn their Ferrari. I'll come back to that in a second. Number 3, lining up second on the grid, Marcus Paltela will go first, as is the tradition in that car. And pole position, you can see it's another of those BMWs. It's going to be a BMW versus McLaren fight, I think, for the first few laps. The pole position car started by the man that did the time, Frank Kechler, and then Adam Carroll and Greg Franchi, the reigning champion, will share the car with him. Adam Carroll, of course, with lots of local knowledge. He lives just down the road, and very, very successful in his time here in single-seaters. So the grid now being cleared. There are 1 or 2 cars slightly out of sequence on the grid, but it matters not really for the rolling start behind the safety car. And so the safety car moves away now, and the race is on. They may not be able to race as you would expect them to, but this counts within the 3 hours. So the race has officially started, and everybody now will slot into position and follow the safety car until the race director, Rui Marquez, is happy, and then that will be the call for the safety car to be released, and it will get into the pit lane, and we'll be in business for the remainder of the 3 hours of racing. You can see this huge grid stretching all the way back around Woodcote Corner. The old pits being used here rather than the new pits near the Silverstone wing. And everybody now leaves the grid with, for this round, 10 brands having arrived, 9 getting into the race, because the new Jaguar, of which there was great excitement to see the car in the test session for the bronze-graded drivers on Saturday morning, I'm afraid had an engine problem. The car run by Emile Frey. His son Laurens Frey was the man behind the wheel, and there was smoke out of the engine, and the car was parked before it did any serious damage, but the damage that it had done was enough to render it a non-starter. We've lost George Caban's Lamborghini because of its oil drainage on Saturday in pre-qualifying, but we still have one Lamborghini on the grid, so 9 brands will take part in this second round of the championship. The cars now working their way in the gloom, in the spray, out of the Beckett's S's. Let's take a look at the grid. We've had a look at it in terms of the cars lining up on the track, but it's going to be the 66 BMW alongside Mark VDS Racing's BMW, then the ART McLaren, hooray, it is on the grid, alongside the Gulf Racing car, then Mark Sword starting in Audi number 40, and the Matt Bell United Autosports McLaren alongside. Mark Hyatt goes first in number 24, Koen Wouters in number 13. Then you've got Mike Hazelman starting, Jochen Havertz to line up alongside him. Matt Draper in number 60, and Christopher Mies will start in number 1. 14, the driver that goes first, the Mercedes is Mario Frischkes, Jack Gerber alongside in number 50. Then Stefan Lemeray and Jordan Grogart, with the McLaren having had a Rob Bath down time. This again is part of the fascination of this race, the start grid based on the car's best time across the qualifying sessions, but it does not have to be the driver that did the time that goes first. So you'll find some cars suddenly rise up the order at the start because of a different driver in them. You'll find some go backwards because it's the driver in that's slower than the man that did the time, and the car is gridded, if you like, slightly out of sequence. 59 is going to be an interesting car to watch. Started by Andrea Ceccato, Michael Lyons to do the middle stint, and Josh Wakefield, young British driver, having his first outing in this car. He will bring it home. And you saw also there on the caption the number 75 Ferrari, way back on the grid, lining up 27th. Mark Henrici will start. Now, Mark Henrici at pains to point out after Monza, where, remember, he led and then dropped back to 5th by the end, that it wasn't him going slowly because he's a slow driver, far from it. He was having some dramas with the car, not mechanically, but the car had a tear-off windscreen visor that, as the wipers were working constantly through the race, it started to grind away that tear-off, and he could barely see anything out of the front. So going down the straights, he had to move his head around to try and see where the apex of the next corner was and where the braking point was, and he was just having to go slowly, largely because he couldn't see, and that in turn affected his confidence, which made him go fractionally slower, and so it all added up to be a rather disappointing outcome for Mark. He's very keen to fight back this weekend, and having raced in the wet at the Nürburgring 24 Hours a couple of weeks ago, he reckons that he and the Porter in the wet will get on here, and that's good news, because for his stint he's going to find a very wet road indeed. The car's coming out of Luffield. There is number 12, this car, Gregoire de Moustier at the wheel. Duncan Tappy is the other driver of that car. Duncan, who for a number of seasons was ploughing a single-seater career, but funds not being all that plentiful for Duncan, he's now switched his attention to GT racing, and of course that's on a class pole position. Duncan Tappy did the time in the car in qualifying to put it 3rd overall, but class pole position, so going extremely well, that car yesterday. And Duncan Tappy, once he gets behind the wheel, certainly is going to be a man to watch. The McLarens, as I say, much more competitive here for a number of reasons. Partly McLaren have done a lot of work on them since the opening round of the championship at Monza. The cars are a little bit lighter as well. They've had 20 kilos taken out of them. The ride height is different because now the cars are lower by 5 millimetres than they were for the opening race at Monza. That in turn therefore helps the aero, and also the various updates that McLaren has done affect the intercoolers, which therefore can operate at lower temperatures, and therefore with the temperatures being lower there's a bit more power, so the cars, for all these things added together, become a lot faster this weekend. We're getting a report of car 20 having been off the road and back on again, and number 20 is Patrice Gouillard. We saw the car on the grid, it's the Ferrari, so he's managed to get underway once more, and so now as the cars work their way on this second lap of the race, consequently that car will fall a long way down the order. In fact, it's going to be in last place. It has not yet completed its original lap, so this is a pretty awful weekend for Patrice Gouillard. So Frank Kettler it is who notionally leads the way in the BMW, and of course Frank Kettler was a race winner last year in the Blancpain Endurance Series, stays with the Vita 4-1 team, but the squad switching from Ferrari to BMW for this year. Frank Kettler, who's a former Formula Renault champion, won the North European Cup a few years ago and has been successful in German GT as well as in the GT1 World Championship in recent seasons. How about that for a gloomy shot as the headlights really shine? The car's weaving around through the sequence of corners down towards the Hanger Straight and then through the Vale. That's the Silverstone wing you can see to the right-hand side. And the cars now making their way to the new Abbey. So rather than go left as they did in the old days, they swing right, very, very fast corner through Abbey and then Farm up to the new sequence put in a couple of years back, where they have to slow for Village, the Loop, Aintree, and Wellington Straight, which is that new sequence of corners put in to a very different look these days to Silverstone. It's sort of fabulous circuit, and you can see the extra runoff tarmac. So although there are gravel traps, if people go off, there's less chance of them getting stuck and being able to rejoin the race, which is great news, especially when you've got a field as big as this. And the number 9 McLaren, started by Rob Bell, operated by Dave Price, who looks after the team for Roel Goethe, who will share 69, the sister car. Mike Wainwright shares with Rob Bell. Roel Goethe sharing not with Stuart Hall, who was with a Monza, but Jamie Campbell-Walter. Good to have Jamie in the Blancpain Endurance Series. 69 starting a bit further back on the grid. You can see everybody weaving around, desperately trying to find a bit of temperature in the tyres so that they can push on when the race gets underway proper, when the safety car peels off. And you're on board with Mark Hayek in the Blancpain-backed Lamborghini, and you can see just how bad the conditions are, all the spray being kicked into his face. And this is at a fairly slow speed as well, relative to what they will be doing when the safety car peels off. Mark Hayek sharing with Peter Cox. What you are finding is some drivers accelerating and then slowing a little bit, and that's having this concertina effect, which is always a bit of a risk when you've got so many cars, particularly in these weather conditions. Safety car turning into Cox Corner. Look at the variety. BMW, McLaren, a pair of McLaren swinging through Cox. The next pair of headlights on the Mark Sword-driven Audi. There is Matt Bell, brother of Rob, so we're going to have this great family fight in the first few laps. And the safety car being told to go faster, so this is what we saw at Monza, the safety car picking up its speed, that in turn allowing the drivers to get a bit of warmth into the tyres. On board with Matt Bell, this is his view from the McLaren. And just up ahead of him there is Mark Sword, driving the Audi. Mark Sword, who is a man that's been around in motor racing for a long, long time. He's 66 years of age now, Mark, and was the 1971 French Renault 12 Cup winner. Not many people add the Renault 12 Cup to their CV, but Mark Sword goes back so far he can do that. Multiple French Super Tourism champion, raced at Le Mans for many, many years, and these days he's graded as bronze, mainly because of his age, although he's been hugely successful. He's not keeping up with the rest of the pack at the moment. He's letting everybody else go, then he can see a bit more, I think, but he's got them all stacked up behind him. There's the Lamborghini of Mark Hayek, and then the Mercedes next in the queue, in fact, which is Koen Wouters starting in that car. McLaren, BMW, Ferrari. Ferrari's not going so well around here, but really yesterday the big surprise was how far back the Porsches were. This is a circuit where you need good aero, and the Porsches just don't seem to be quite as svelte as the other shapes on the grid. So Porsche's way, way back, Pro Speed scratching their heads, and maybe in the rain I think they're going to go better, but certainly if this were a dry race, the Porsches would be massively struggling. The safety car then takes the field up towards Abbey. There's Marcus Paltela, who, like at Monza, is not having to worry too much about his stint just yet because it's behind the safety car. We've got, what, 37 minutes from memory behind the safety car at Monza. I don't think it's going to be that great here, but once the race gets underway, what can Marcus Paltela do? There's Gregoire de Moustier behind him in the Pro-Am Cup class McLaren. Gregoire came via Peugeot Spider Racing and the Midjet Series, the French Midjet Series, into Formula BMW. He's raced in French GT and the FIA GT Championship, and we've seen him in Formula Renault as well as in GT racing. This year driving for Hexis in GT1 successfully, and he and Duncan Tappy make a very good combination. It was a delighted Duncan that was in the press conference yesterday, and we got that class pole position, and it's a good team behind this car. ART Grand Prix, associated perhaps more with single-seater racing. The safety car is going to be in this time. The timing screen now has the legend safety car in at the end of this lap. You can see Frank Kekler then has backed off. He stacked everybody up, and once he accelerates, he's got to keep accelerating. He can't accelerate and then slow and accelerate and slow, because all that does is make things very dangerous behind him, and the race director will come down on him like a ton of bricks. So the German driver leading the field now then up towards Luffield. He starts to accelerate away. It's a BMW 1-2 in the classification. We've done 2 laps then behind the safety car. The race has therefore counted those 2 laps, but now we go racing proper at Silverstone for round 2 of the Blancpain Endurance Series. There for third is Gregoire de Moustier, but the man to watch, I think, in these opening laps is going to be Rob Bell, right up behind him in the Gulf Racing McLaren, who peels out of the spray to try and have a look at what's going on down towards Cops Corner. Can he get past? No, he can't. He slots back in. There's Mark Sword also trying to defend from Matt Bell, who looked much quicker going through Copse then as the drivers look for some traction, look for the grip as they go up towards the Beckett's S's. Very, very fast part of the circuit for the first time. Frank Kekler leads the way, and Matt Bell gains a place then. He works his way past Mark Soord in the Santilot Racing Audi as they go into the Beckett's S's for the first time under proper racing conditions. So that was effectively 10 minutes, if you like, behind the safety car. We've had 3 laps done behind it, and the car's then accelerating onto the Hanger Straight for the first time. There Mike Hazeman's battling with 37, Jochen Habertz, who was being warned for his driving standards earlier on in the weekend, as were quite a lot of drivers for going the wrong side of the white line. Stowe corner, to the inside goes Rob Bell. Is he going to be able to find a way past Gregoire de Moustier? The two McLarens absolutely side by side. To the inside goes Bell, and he goes by. That gives him 3rd place. The two McLarens running as one, though, as they go down through Vale for the 4th time in the race, the first proper racing lap. But now you can see that Rob Bell has got past de Moustier. He was pulling away a little bit until they got to the braking zone for Club, but now right up behind the white and red ART McLaren is the red, white and blue United Autosports car with Matt Bell, Rob's brother, at the wheel of it. So we've almost got the Bell battle, and a spin there and possibly contacts now. That's got a Mark VDS look to it. Is that Hazeman's or is that a different car? Let's see as the camera zooms in. Car trying to rejoin, and that in the middle of the approach to Club is causing cars to scatter every which way. It was Mike Hazeman's, vastly experienced driver, and Mike, I'm afraid, has had a spin that's going to drop the car way, way down. Whether he was tagged into that or whether he just lost it because of the road being so slippery, we'll try to find out. But either way, that car has swapped ends, and look at this, charging around the outside, number 1 Audi, gaining ground there. That's Christopher Mies. Often there's a bit more grip on the very outside, and he's got himself up past Mark Hayek. This is Mark Hayek's view. You're on board in the Lamborghini then as the cars accelerate down now from Aintree onto Wellington Straight, and Rob Bell is absolutely flying. This is for 2nd place then as he tries to displace Marcus Paltela coming into Brooklands. McLaren on the inside of BMW, riding the curve there is Rob Bell, but he can't quite get past the fin. Marcus Paltela doing a good job of defending, but all the time Frank Kekler then is getting away up front as the cars now for 2nd place come nose to tail out of Luffield up towards Woodcote Corner, and Rob Bell in the McLaren goes charging through. Now, to be fair, this car, 2nd at the moment, thanks to a great effort by Rob Bell, is going to drop back when Mike Wainwright drives it. He's just not as quick, not as experienced as Rob Bell is, but while Rob's in the car, it's going to fly. Paltela drops to 3rd then, and the gap between Kekler and Bell is 5 seconds already for the race lead. The cars now turning their way up towards the Beckett's S's once again. Frank Kekler trying to get on with the job here and pull clear up front. So we've had 4 laps of the race. Another car off there is 33 Porsche, which is rejoining. It's David Touchebon, the man behind the wheel of it. That's a Pro-Am Cup car. And there to the outside is the pole-sitting car in the Gentleman Trophy. It's the Dodge Viper, which goes right round the outside. And Luc Paillard, the former Caterham racer, is at the wheel of it. And at the moment, that is the leading car in Gentleman Trophy. And there's somebody very, very slow coming onto the Hanger Straight. Now, is that the Bell McLaren? No, it's not. Somebody else from the back of the field, I think, who has come to a halt there. So we'll try and work out in a second who it is. The race leaders then on lap number 5. Frank Kekler it is who leads the way from, in 2nd place, Rob Bell. 3rd now is Marcus Paltela. 4th is de Moustier. 5th is Matt Bell. And in 6th spot, you've got number 13, Koen Wouters. There's number 60, Matt Draper starting. And the car at the moment running in 11th place as they tiptoe their way around Stowe. Now, we're conscious that there's a yellow flag out on the circuit. Perhaps not a surprise, given A, the size of the field, and B, the weather conditions here as the cars come through Vale. Mark Soord in car number 40 has been dropping down the order a little bit, and we've also got 24 Mark Hayek trying to gain ground as they paddle their way out of Club. Mark Hayek coming under pressure there. Look from the Daniel Zampieri driven number 71 Ferrari, the Kessel racing car that was very, very quick at Monza. I think some drivers pushing on for all their worth, others being a little bit more circumspect, as you might appreciate in these conditions. But Zampieri throwing caution to the wind then in the Ferrari, looking for a way past the Lamborghini as the cars come out of Albion Farm up now towards Village, and to the inside goes Zampieri. He picks up that place as we look at 37, which is Jochen Habertz right up alongside Koen Wouters, and this is going to be a change for 6th place. Yes, the BMW zapped by, and Christopher Mies also now looking for a way through as well. So the car's sprinting onto Wellington Straight. Mies couldn't quite do it, and therefore drops back a little bit. That move didn't work, and so he's lost a little bit of ground. Car 47, we're being told, is the one that has stopped out on the circuit. That's why the yellow flag is there, and it's one of the McLarens. It's the one started by Ricardo Bravo that has stopped out on track. So that was the reason for the car stranded on the circuit that we saw coming onto the Hanger Straight. Jochen Habertz then leading Koen Wouters in that battle now for 6th place as the leader. Frank Kekler goes by. It was 5 seconds. It's come down a gnat. It's down to 4.8 seconds now between them. Paltela runs 3rd. Gregoire de Moustier, who is lapping quicker than Marcus Paltela, is 4th. So there's a battle building up for 3rd spot now. 5th is Matt Bell. Jochen Habertz going well for 6th. Koen Wouters 7th. Christopher Mies now is 8th. 9th is Matt Draper. Up into 10th has come Zampieri. 11th is Nick Katzberg going well. Mark Hayek is in 12th place, and Mark Soord dropping away down in 13th. There's Stefan Lemeray, who is in 14th place, going through Cops Corner. In fact, make that 13th. He's just got past Mark Soord, hasn't he, going into the right-hander. So another place lost for the Frenchman and gained by the Belgian driver. There is Mark Soord. He's one of those drivers being rather more circumspect. And behind him is another car to watch because it's a very quick Audi. Andrea Piccini starting in the number 2 Belgian Audi Club Team WRT car, replacing Marco Bononomi this weekend. And number 2 went well at Monza, remember? There's 75 Porsche. Mark Henrici at the wheel of it in this opening stint. He brought the car home with lack of visibility at Monza. And Mark Henrici now looking to gain places, of course, within this stint. 21st at the start of the lap. Daniel Zampieri gains another place. That's 9th going into Stone. Moves himself up past Matt Draper in the Von Ryan Racing McLaren. And meantime, coming through Club, there you can see Mercedes versus Audi absolutely together. The two cars hunting for traction, and you've got Koen Wouters repelling number 1, Christopher Mies there. This is for 7th place, the Mercedes just ahead of the Audi. And Christopher Mies looking ever more eager to get past, flashing his lights there, saying, come on, I'm quicker than you, get out of the way. Well, Koen Wouters wants to hang on to that place for as long as possible. It's a quick car, that, especially when you get Anthony Kumpen and Carl Wendlinger into it, so as they thread their way out of Avian Farm, up now towards Village. Which way does Christopher Mies go? We've seen him gaining ground on the outside, which is what he tries to do here, but he outbrakes himself and goes in a little bit deep, runs wide. And so now, heading up to the loop, the Mercedes not just hangs onto the place, but does so by a couple of cars' lengths. Speed building now, through Aintree, onto Wellington Straight, down towards Brooklands. This has become the fastest part of Silverstone in this configuration, this section, the speed there from the loop all the way through Aintree, and it can just get faster and faster right the way down Wellington Straight towards the stadium. And Koen Wouters hanging on to his 7th spot then as the cars turn their way into that left-hander. Race leader in the meantime, Frank Kekler, has just gone across the timing line. He leads the way. Look at this battle going on, because you've got diving up on the inside the recovering number 20 Ferrari, which is the car that had its problems early on in the hands of Patrice Gouillard, but he's now working his way up the order. 40th place, a little bit better than that, I reckon, by the end of the lap, because he's now on the tail of the 69 McLaren. It's the car of Roel Goethe. He easily goes through on the inside. So Patrice Gouillard using his many, many years of experience here, carving his way up the order. It's a car I think to keep an eye to over the course of 3 hours, not just one stint, but the whole race. He's going to get better and better, that. Number 2, Andrea Piccini, right on the back of Mark Hayek then as they go through Cops. Hayek's lost a place there to Stefan Lemeray, so he's down to 13th. On board with the Lamborghini briefly there as Hayek tries to attack and defend. Not easy in these awful conditions. And now Lemeray is starting to close as well on Nick Katzberg ahead of him. So as they work their way through the Beckett's S's, heading to the Hangar Straight once again, this traffic jam of cars building up, and it's not that easy to overtake in this weather. Partly because you can't see very much, but also to do the overtaking, you've got to go offline where it's even more treacherous. So drivers having to be very, very careful. Down towards Stoke Corner, there's Matt Draper starting in the Von Ryan McLaren. There's Katzberg in the red and white BMW. Behind him is Lemeray, and the next pair were almost overlapping. Now, how about this fight that's building up nicely for 3rd place? Marcus Paltela versus Gregoire Demoustier. The BMW is ahead of the McLaren. Demoustier lines up to have a look coming into Abbey, but it's such a quick corner, you've got to be really brave to do it there. And quite understandably, Gregoire Demoustier slots back in behind, but the BMW hangs onto the place. Marcus Paltela goes now up towards Village. Is Demoustier close enough to have a go there? I don't think he is, and so the BMW hangs onto the spot for now. Gregoire Demoustier looking for 3rd place. Behind, you've got 22 McLaren in the hands of Matt Bell, and Demoustier has a cheeky look up on the inside, realises it wasn't going to work, slows the car down in time, and contact is avoided. But for now then, Marcus Paltela hangs on to that 3rd place as the cars head down Wellington Straight once more. Gregoire Demoustier, we've not seen too much of at Silverstone in the past, but he's going well, and there's a big yawning gap on the inside for him. Marcus Paltela almost invites him to go by. Doesn't move across and defend, so the McLaren goes through, but goes a little bit deep into the corner. Demoustier gathers it up, finds the clipping point eventually, and comes now through Luffield, and that puts number 12 then up into 3rd place, going very strongly. Frank Kekler still leading the way, and at the moment is the fastest man in the race. He's done the best lap, and of course he's got the visibility. He's got nobody to defend from at the moment, so he's not having to go slower by defending. He can just drive his own race for now. Still 2nd is number 9 McLaren of Rob Bell. Now 3rd, there he is, Gregoire Demoustier. Down to 4th, he's gone Marcus Paltela. The next gap back takes you to the 5th place McLaren of Matt Bell, and 6th going through is Jochen Habets, who's going tremendously well here. And this fight now is for 7th, Koen Wouters versus number 1 Audi, Christopher Mies at the wheel of it. But you can see the top 6 standings and the gap at the moment, but as far as the fight for 7th is concerned, it might change any moment. Still flashing his headlights there, number 1 Christopher Mies, right on the back of Koen Wouters He did the middle stint rather than the opening stint at Monza, and certainly didn't disgrace himself. He's keeping that car well placed at the moment. He's the Belgian driver. He fronts the band Clouseau back home. Comes onto the hanger straight now. Christopher Mies chasing after him. And of course, Christopher Mies, we know, is a very rapid driver. Winner of this year's Bathurst 12 Hours. Former GT3 European champion. Races in German GT as well as international categories. Came out of karting in the Ford Fiesta Cup back home. And he's right on the tail now of Wouters. But he cannot find a way past the Mercedes as they turn out of Stoke Corner. The Audi you might expect to have gone by now. However, Koen Wouters is doing a really good job of defending. Now, as far as the lead gap is concerned, 4.6 seconds. There's the leader, Frank Kechler, in the Vita 4-1 BMW. Making his way now up towards Village. Let's go down to a wet pit lane. Mike Wainwright is with Hayley Coxon.
Mike Rubb certainly has been able to get on the pace in these challenging conditions.
He seems to do very well. Hopefully we can get to #1 position. He seems to be catching the BMW, which is good news. We've got a long way to go though, so all in our own time, but the car seems to be going well at the moment.
And how about starting against his brother as well? I'm sure he's wanted to be the fastest Bell out there.
I'm sure they both want to beat each other, but at the end of the day it's a team game. You know, the cars need to both finish, so they'll both be careful in that respect.
Thank you.
Yeah, at the moment the Battle of the Bells hasn't quite developed, has it? Because you've got Rob second and Matt fifth, but whilst each wants to be quicker than the other, they also want to make sure their cars finish, so no heroics. It's not really terribly advisable to be a real hero just yet when there are 2 hours and 38 minutes of the race to go. Frank Kechler, you've just seen flash through Woodcote Corner. There is the second place car. You've heard from Mike Wainwright, who will be the other driver of that. He will take over. And there, at Village's contact, I'm afraid Mercedes clobbers the Jack Gerber Ferrari by the look of it. Yes, it is. Jack Gerber in car 50 goes backwards. And can he get the car fired up and rejoin the race? So Jack Gerber tagged into a spin. That means the workload for Raffaele Giammaria is going to be even more now. He's going to have to drag that car up the order. And it was one of those Mercedes run by the Black Falcon Racing team that just clipped him. I think I'm right in saying it was the 18 car that got involved. Heading into Village, Steve Jans starting it. Now, how's the fight between Koen Wouters and Christopher Mies doing? It's still the Mercedes ahead. And this is not helping Christopher Mies now, because in real terms he's losing touch with those cars ahead of him. He's losing touch with the leader because he's in traffic and he can't lap as quickly as Frank Kechler. Making his way then now up to Chapel Curve. Koen Wouters, to be fair to him, is doing a very good job of defending. Now, in terms of lap time, are they getting any closer to Jochen Habets ahead? Yes, they are. Wouters, in fact, did his best lap of the race last time through. So he's being inspired rather now by having that car breathing down his neck. So he's speeding up and he's closing on the traffic ahead of him. But that's going to make life even more difficult, because soon Wouters will try and attack for a place, as well as having to defend all at the same time. Out of Stowe, down through Vale. This is the second round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. It's being led by BMW from McLaren, BMW, McLaren and BMW. And then something different, Mercedes and Audi. Here they are, battling now for 7th place, coming through Club, and they're closing all the while on Jochen Habets up ahead of them. Koen Wouters, who's not just an experienced GT racer, he's done the Dakar Rally for a number of years as well, and he's bearing down on Jochen Habets. There's the pit lane, where you've got one of the Ferraris in by the look of it. It's Jack Gerber's car. In fact, the one that we saw spinning, he's come in to have a quick damage assessment. But that car came in when it was 40th. It's going to go out, of course, a lot further back than that. Through Village, up towards the loop, comes Koen Wouters. Behind him is Christopher Mies. And behind them, we talk about Wouters catching up on people. Well, they're being caught as well, because Daniel Zampieri, pole position man at Monza, is getting closer and closer to this battle all the while. There he is, Zampieri, number 71, then powering his way onto Wellington Straight. And that car, which he shares with Davide Rigon and Stefano Gattuso, very, very quick race long it's going to be. Runs in the Pro Cup, so well placed at the moment. And another one to keep an eye to over the course of 3 hours. There are so many cars in this that are going to have their strengths as the race unfolds. So many to keep an eye on. That's why the Blancpain Endurance Series is so good, because so much happens. And as the race leader then goes across the line, the gap down a little bit, 4.3 seconds. Kechler to Rob Bell. Matt Bell, in turn, is being caught by the charging Jochen Habets. There he is in the BMW. Former Mini Cooper Endurance Challenge racer. He's racing the Dutch Supercar Challenge in Porsches, in the Euro Cup Megane Trophy, Jochen Habets. So he's pretty experienced these days. The man behind it getting closer all the while, though, Koen Wouters. And 24, Mark Hayek, dropping down the order, I think, because that car was up in the top 12 early on. He is down to 15th, so Mark Hayek now slipping down the order. Peter Cox, of course, the second driver for this car, will make it fly, no question. But his workload is increasing all the while with every place that is lost in these weather conditions, so it means that Peter Cox will have to go even harder. But it's not so much an overall position that they're concerned about, it's the Pro-Am class. That's being led at the moment by number 9 McLaren, Rob Bell at the wheel of it. He's very much the Pro. Mike Wainwright is the Am in that car, and the number 12 McLaren behind Fred Moustier and Duncan Tappy. That also slots into Pro-Am. That's the Pro-Am category standings, because you've got McLaren 1, 2, cars I just talked about. Jochen Habert's currently 3rd in the class. 4th is Nick Katzberg's BMW. 5th is Matt Draper in the McLaren, you can see heading towards us, and then right on his tail, 57 Ferrari, and that's the car being started by Giacomo Petrobelli. Petrobelli going really well here, coming out of Stone. In fact, having a look to get past the McLaren. The two of them almost overlap as they head through Vale, but Matt Draper, who's done lots of racing in historics and in Caterhams, hangs onto the place, or does he? No, because in the gloom, round the outside, goes Petrobelli to pick up the place in the Ferrari. That's a really brave move in these conditions at the end of Vale to go right round the outside. So Giacomo Petrobelli gained himself a place, powering his way now up towards Abbey, and he's getting away from the McLaren. And now you can see a rather impatient Mark Hayek behind him, flashing his light, saying, come on, get out of my way. I want to have a go at making up some ground as well here. Well, of course, at this stage, these are genuine battles for places. It's not a car being lapped, so Matt Draper is quite at liberty to defend here for as long as he can. Is Mark Hayek going to be able to find a way past him? Meanwhile, there is Matt Bell coming down towards Brooklands. Behind him is Jochen Habert, who gets stronger and stronger, it seems, as the race wears on in this BMW. And he's right on the back of the McLaren. Nose to tail, those two now, heading up towards Luffield. Bell, in turn, is not that far behind Marcus Paltela, so things are building up nicely between this lot. Jochen Habert comes across the line. We're now getting lappery as well, just to add to the woes of some drivers as they try to pick their way through slower cars. And this is the first real drama, I suppose, that Frank Kettler will have had. He's had a good clear road for the majority of the race. Now it's about to change for him as he picks his way through traffic. 50 cars took the start at Silverstone, so as soon as they get into traffic, it's going to be a constant problem for them right the way to the end of the race, because of pit stops and so forth, unless the safety car bunches them up. But at Monza, despite the safety car start in the wet weather, once the race got underway proper, we never had the safety car again, despite everybody's worst fears and predictions because of the weather and what may have unfolded. Everybody seemed to be quite well behaved in the end. Mark Hayek then, riding with him, 14th he is now, trying to gain ground as Petrobelli works his way down towards the end of the Hangar Straight. The Ferrari looking very strong, not Petrobelli. Jack Gerber back out after his pit stop. Behind is Paltela, and Matt Bell about to make his move here. This is for 4th place, the two of them being held up a little bit by the Ferrari. So number 50, Jack Gerber, has rejoined the race, needs to get out of the way now. Marcus Paltela dives to the inside, heading to the end of Vale. Yes, he's gone through now, so the lapped Ferrari overtaken by one car, but now, of course, he needs to get out of the way of the other. Bell and Habertz together as they work their way past the Silverstone wing. So 4th, 5th, 6th you're looking at, with a back marker in amongst them. Paltela is 4th, and Jack Gerber making a race out of this. Not helping Matt Bell terribly much, is it? Because he's being delayed in his quest to get onto terms with the number 3 BMW. He shouldn't really have to fight to get past a back marker. He lines up to have a look on the inside coming into Village. Inside line there is fine. That's the outside line, though, for the loop. He's gone through, so Matt Bell now puts a lap on the Ferrari, and now it's Jochen Habertz who gets held up. And look in the background, because you've got there Zampieri right up alongside the Audi number 1 of Mies. So Zampieri's alongside. This is going to be a change for 8th place. Yes, the Ferrari goes through. Daniel Zampieri charging up the order now, accelerating down Wellington Straight, and a bit of traffic all makes that concertina effect. There's Wouters making his move now down towards Brooklands against Jochen Habertz for 6th place, and he's gone by. Mercedes gets past BMW, all of this because they've had to wriggle their way past the Ferrari of Jack Gerber, back out after a spin and a pit stop. The net result of all of this, therefore, is that some people have benefited and some have lost out. Matt Bell lost out in terms of time, having been right up with Paltela. He's got to do that hard work all over again. Christopher Mies has lost out because he's lost a spot also there to Zampieri, who comes over the timing line looking to get past the number 50 Ferrari, and he still hasn't been able to do so. Jack Gerber standing his ground here, and behind him, nose to tail, Ferrari and Audi battle their way now up towards the left-hander, the Maggots, then on towards the Beckett's S's. Now is Jack Gerber being shown a blue flag. Gets it wrong and gets out of the way, bounces onto the grass, and that in turn compromises number 1 Audi, look, because that gets stuck behind him. So Zampieri is released from behind number 50 Ferrari, but now Christopher Mies has got to find a way past. Coming onto the Hangar Straight, there's an argument to say the team should be on the radio to say to Jack, just get out of the way, let all these quicker cars go through. And I think that's what has now happened. In fact, he has moved to one side coming down the Hangar Straight. Christopher Mies should be able to go through on the inside and gain the pace. Yes, he does. He's gone through now. But all he's done is lap a slower car. He's not gained anything in the overall standings. Far from it. He's lost ground against Daniel Zampieri. To the end of the Vale they come. Christopher Mies then trying to fight back. Remember, Mike Hesemans had a spin early on in the race. He is now the fastest man on the circuit. He's up into 20th place also in number 4 BMW, Mike Hesemans. So he's charging on, his next target being Mark Henrici. So two quick drivers there, both working their way up the order, and running a little bit wide is the BMW, the McLaren rather I should say, and that's a spinning Porsche recovering. Roland Berville, I think it is, 34, yeah, who has got it wrong in the Beckett's S's. Experienced driver, Roland Berville. He's been racing Porsches in GT classes for many, many years. Sorts himself out, rejoins, no harm done. One of the good things about Silverstone these days, so much run off the tarmac because of the Grand Prix here. That means that rather than getting onto wet grass that gives you an even bigger problem, or a gravel bed, you can sort yourself out and rejoin the race. 57, Giacomo Petrobelli has got himself up past Nick Katzberg now, and this Ferrari, which runs in the Pro-Am Cup, is getting stronger and stronger as the race wears on. Petrobelli shares it with Alessandro Bonaccini and Eugenio Amos. Both of those drivers are quick as well, so this is another one to look for as the race goes on. The team manager of number 19, incidentally, being summoned to the race director. That's the Jerome Thierry, Oliver Morley and Ricardo Bruchin Mercedes, started by Oliver Morley. And he had to go to see the race director a few times yesterday as well, did that team manager. And it's all to do with not respecting the track limits. Oliver Morley was, I'm pretty sure, guilty of that yesterday across the sessions in which he drove, and it's happening again today by the look of it. Now let's go to the pit lane and hear from Alvaro Parent, driving for United Autosports. He is with Haley.
Alvaro, the McLarens are certainly looking strong here today, but still a long way to go.
Yeah, still a long way to go. It's looking really difficult conditions out there. The rain is not going to stop, so it's going to be all the time like this. Matt's doing a good job. We're 5th right now, and he's on top of the 4th, and who knows what can happen. David's ready for the next stint, and then I'm jumping in at the end. So we're looking all right, and trying to get some feedback from Matt to see if we can do something to improve.
Yeah. Thank you.
The David of whom Alvaro speaks is David Brabham, who is splitting his time between Silverstone and Le Mans this weekend. He's one of a handful of drivers having to jet between the two. It's testing at Le Mans, so he's had to do his laps there as well as here. So shows commitment to his racing, doesn't it, that from David Brabham? But he'll do the middle stint as we're looking then at this battle that's shaping up nicely between the BMW in the hands of Marcus Paltela, and there the McLaren in the hands of Matt Bell, with Koen Wouters there in 6th spot behind in the Mercedes. Car's accelerating up now towards Abby Koen Wouters, who was strong across the practice sessions yesterday, who had a change behind, because up into 7th place now has come Daniel Zampieri. Through farm up towards village, so all the while we're getting a bit of shuffling within the top 10, and it's Zampieri there, look who's the mover in the pack, because now he comes right up onto the tail of the Mercedes. Behind you've got Jochen Habets, and then number 1, which is Christopher Mies in the Audi, looking for a way through as well. Koen Wouters goes a little bit wide there. The Ferrari almost gets its tail tapped by Jochen Habets' BMW. Zampieri on a tighter line that was a bit slower, in fact, so that almost caught out Jochen Habets as the leaders blast down the Wellington straight once again, as there Marcus Paltela moves across to the wetter part of the road. A bit early to think about preserving tyres, isn't it? Zampieri dives up the inside, goes really deep into Brooklands. Koen Wouters has to sort himself out there because that Ferrari was coming through. Make no mistake about it. Zampieri then picks up another place. He's now up into the top 6 and absolutely flying is Zampieri. He went really well at Monza. He's rising to the occasion again here through Woodcote. So he's got himself up into the top 6. Where next can he go? How high up the order can he go in this car that started 18th on the grid? Marcus Paltela there, putting a lap on former airline pilot Jan Brunstedt in the Audi that goes a lap down the Gentleman Trophy class car. There is Koen Wouters then, now down to 7th place, turning his way through Cops Corner. So although Zampieri has worked his way through traffic and is just storming on relentlessly, tremendously impressive effort this, others like Christopher Mies not finding it quite so easy. 22 you're riding with at the moment. This is Matt Bell, who is in 5th place, and he's now got himself caught up behind the slower Audi. That's the car of Jan Brunstedt. Very experienced driver is Jan in touring cars as well as in historic sports cars. Is he going to get out of the way? Well, no, he stands his line, to be fair, doesn't weave across, but Matt Bell has to go the long way round. But Matt is being reeled in, look, by Daniel Zampieri in the flying Ferrari. Those two arrive at the end of Hanger Straight, absolutely tied together, and this is the battle for 5th place now. Zampieri becoming something of the star of the first hour of the race, isn't he, as he works his way now through Stowe, down Vale. The approach to club corner is next for them, and of course while this battle is going on between Bell and Zampieri, they're not that far adrift. Marcus Paltela hanging on in there in fourth, ahead of him is de Musquier. In second you've got Rob Bell, and still leading is Frank Kekler, as round the outside of Jan Brunstedt to lap him goes number one, that's Christopher Mies. He powers his way now past the new pits, the new wing here at Silverstone. Well, Matt Bell never quite got himself up onto the tail of his brother. Instead, he's been very busy in his stint in this race, and he's now trying to keep at bay 71 Daniel Zampieri. On board now in the McLaren. That's Matt Bell hard at work as he now turns up to Village, but loses a place. Zampieri goes through, dives up the inside, that gives him fifth spot. So Zampieri moves himself up one more place. And I reckon he's going to be up with Marcus Paltela before much longer. The way that he's going, Daniel Zampieri, mighty impressive effort this in this first stint of the race. So the Ferrari charging its way now down Wellington Straight, run by Kessel Racing. And Daniel Zampieri, former Italian Formula 3 champion, he's racing GP2, he's raced in Formula Renault 3.5, now turning his attention, successfully so, to GT cars, riding the curbs there, making a real impact in GT racing. He's got great speed, he's got pretty good racecraft as well, he's worked his way up past the McLaren. McLarens have looked good across the weekend so far, but that was all in the dry. We've not seen how these improvements are going to affect things in the wet for them. Well, in the case of Rob Bell, McLaren factory driver, he's still running strongly in second place, and the gap actually has remained pretty constant throughout this stint, 4.6 seconds it is at the moment. It's not really gone up much more than that, never come down by much more than that. Christopher Mies then turning his way in 8th place now through Copse. He's finally got himself up past Jochen Habertz, who's dropping back a little bit. Next target for the Audi, there it is, the Mercedes just up the road ahead in the hands of Koen Wouters, who turns his way into Beckett's and goes a little bit deep there, had to come out of the throttle I think to gather the car up again. That slows him and it slows Christopher Mies, but Mies not able to capitalise, and coming back at him, look, is the BMW behind of Jochen Habertz. We've got another team manager being summoned to see the race director, and it is in the Gentleman Trophy, in fact, Kessel Racing. It's the winning car from Monza, the Ferrari 430 Scuderia, which has transgressed for track limit offences. There, to the inside at Stowe, goes Mies, and finally he's going to get past the Mercedes. Up into 7th place goes the Audi. Christopher Mies working his way up the order, of course, in this car that he shares with Christopher Hasse, and then Stefan Ortelli, I think you can expect to do the last stint. Remember, this was a car that looked strong as the race went on at Monza, but then when Ortelli got in the car, it had that long pit stop before the final stint of the race. The reason being there was a small wishbone problem. Things had come loose within the suspension, and they had a look, tried to see what they could do to repair it. They couldn't repair it, but the car was able to rejoin, albeit not driven at 100%, so that's why the last stint from Stefan Ortelli wasn't quite as stellar as you normally expect to find when he's behind the wheel. Still a car, I think, that could well be up there at the end of the race. You can see now, having got past Koen Wouters, so Christopher Mies is pulling away, and Jochen Habertz in the red, white and blue BMW Z4 behind is the next man to try and find a way past the Belgian driver. Up towards the loop they come. We're currently on lap number 15. Mike Hazelman, still the quickest man on the circuit. He's done the best lap of the race after his early spin. He is in 17th place, and ahead of him is Jordan Groger, just worthy of note, I think, because after Jordan's confidence took a real roughing up at Monza when he crashed behind the safety car, in similar conditions here, he's kept out of trouble, and he's running in 16th place, which is a really good effort for somebody who's new to Silverstone. Down through Brooklands goes Koen Wouters, 37 BMW behind is Jochen Habertz. The gaps are opening up, though, across the leaders. 6.8 seconds now, Kekler to Bell. Traffic, I think, is the answer to that. Then it's 4 seconds back to de Musquier, and Marcus Paltela is a further 10 seconds back. So first to fourth, 21 seconds, and Paltela being reeled in there by the Ferrari. Daniel Zampieri is almost up with him. It's 2 seconds, that gap, and it's going to be much, much less, I reckon, when they work their way along the Hanger Straight, because Zampieri is so brave through the Beckett's S's. That's going to save him some time as well. Lower down the order, Louis Mackiel's being warned about track limit offences now, number 52 Ferrari. There's an awful lot happening, as ever, in this Blancpain Endurance Series round. Mike Hazelman's 17th as he goes over the timing line, still having got the best lap of the race to his credit. Still, Silverstone is pretty wet and horrible, but the driver's keeping out of trouble. They've only had a couple of spins, Jack Gerber being one of them. And we saw Roland Berville losing the Porsche at Beckett. There is Marcus Paltela then, who turns his way now into Stowe Corner. In this first third of the lap, he's lost half a second to Daniel Zampieri alone. So that Ferrari, I think, may well be ahead even by the end of the lap. Zampieri absolutely charging on, as we've seen across the first part of the race. 2 hours and 20 minutes remain. But Zampieri has looked so good across this first stint. The 71 Ferrari, I think, is going to be another potential race winner. There are so many of them in the Blancpain Endurance Series because the quality of the entry is just so high. It's like a who's who of GT racing these days. And the more you look at the entry list, the more you find. There is Paltler then, and somebody in stride. That's the British Audi, as it were, the British driver's number 30 car, started by Peter Belshaw. Craig Wilkins and Aaron Scott are his two co-drivers. Normally Craig does the middle and Aaron Scott does the last stint, and Peter Belshaw, who used to race the KTM Crossbow in British GT racing, has had a rotation at Brooklands, but he gets the car back in the race. Good that car's in the race at all, because yesterday it had a water leak and there was a real question mark as to whether the car would even start. This battle's building up really nicely now for 8th place. Wouters, Habets, and then Stefan Lemeray. Mercedes, BMW, and Koen Wouters losing touch with those ahead, having to go defensive now to keep the 9th place BMW of Jochen Habets at bay. They run nose to tail down Wellington Straight, and Habets tries to go one side and then the other. He sits in the spray. Now where, if at all, does he dive out to make the pass? There is a dry line starting to emerge, or a less wet line, perhaps more than dry. Habets almost hits the back of the Mercedes. So close does he get. They run absolutely together up towards Luffield, really wide, looking for more grip on the outer line of the road is Stefan Lemeray. It's not paid off for him there, so the order is the same coming into Woodcote Corner. You've got Wouters ahead then of Jochen Habets, and there's his teammate, 36, Stefan Lemeray. The DB Motorsport run BMWs then have got themselves together. 37 Habets, the Pro-Am class. 36 there, the Lemeray car running in the Pro Cup. Meantime, there you've got the 22 McLaren in the hands of Matt Bell, working his way up through the Beckett's S's and trying to identify which of the Gulf McLarens is ahead of him, as he managed to get up with Rob all of a sudden, as Rob got a problem. His first sector time last lap was a bit slowish. Let's keep an eye to this. Number 2, Andrea Piccini, running in 11th place, and he's getting into this traffic jam of cars now as well. No, it's going to be 69, isn't it? Roel Goethe that Matt Bell was getting past, because Roel started in that car and it's 45th place. So it's Lapri, and Matt Bell goes storming by now. So Rob Bell still running in 2nd place, despite having lost time in the first sector of the lap relative to Frank Kekler. Lemeray gets past Habets, going into Stowe Corner, moves himself through on the inside. And you can see around the clock on the screen a yellow flag, and that's the reason, because we've got a BMW for Mark VDS Racing in trouble, and it's Mike Hazelman's again by the look of it. That's coming out of Aintree on the new part of the circuit, and Mike Hazelman's has stopped. Now, did he spin to get there? The sister car continues. It's number 3, Stefan Lemeray. Marcus Paltler at the wheel of it. Stefan Lemeray is making progress now in 36, having got himself into the top 10. They're about to get to the Hazelman's incident zone. That's where the yellow flag is waving, and Paltler takes a really odd line going into the corner, and that gives Zampieri a chance to look up the inside. Yellow flag means no overtaking, and Paltler now is about to see the sister car being pushed out of the way. So is that a mechanical problem for Hazelman's, or did he spin and then stall and the car wouldn't restart? We know not. Either way, it looks like number 4 is out of the race. Big disappointment for that team, depriving Bert Langevin and then Henri Moser a chance to drive by the look of it. Now, having predicted that Zampieri will be up and past Paltler before much longer, now Paltler is rising to the occasion to try and hang on to that 4th place, because he's speeding up a little bit and trying therefore to extend the margin over the Ferrari. Zampieri not now finding this quite as easy as he has found it to get past other cars. So with that yellow flag zone out on one part of the circuit, 4th and 5th come through. The gap between them was over 2 seconds a couple of laps back. It's down to 1.2, but it's not coming down as quickly as expected between those two cars. Behind them is number 1 Audi, Christopher Mies, into the top 6 now. Zampieri pushes on out of Copse Corner. And talking of pushing, that's exactly what the marshals have had to do to get Mike Hazelman's car out of the way and off the road. Giacomo Petrobelli now attacking Jochen Habets though as they go through Copse. This is for 9th place, and behind them both Andrea Piccini in the Audi. So there are battles developing all the time as the order shuffles. Roel Goethe keeping out of harm's way there as the 2nd Gulf Racing McLaren is lapped. That's going to come back into the equation once JCW, Jamie Campbell-Walter, gets behind the wheel. Jochen Habets busy flashing his lights to try and get past, and then Petrobelli and Piccini want to try and find a way through as well. Roel Goethe gets out of the way onto the wetter part of the circuit. Andrea Piccini there in the 2nd of the Audis. Hopefully now we'll have enough momentum to make a move for a place coming onto the Hanger Straight. As there, into the pit lane has come Koen Wouters. So number 13 is the first one of the leading group to make a pit stop, and that's after effectively 45 minutes. So new tyres go on, fuel goes in, and the Mercedes now blasts back down the pit lane, ready to rejoin the race. So Koen Wouters, who was running in that leading group early on within the top 10, the first of the leading cars to make a pit stop. 13 will rejoin in a moment. Frank Kekler still leading the way, and the gap has now started to creep up, maybe because of traffic. more than the McLaren having a problem behind. But now Rob Bell is 7 seconds back. Still lots of other battles raging on. Petrobelli then ahead of Jochen Habets, with Andrea Piccini up behind them as well. Piccini is going to be somebody else, I think, that will gain ground before much longer, the way that the Audi is going. But Giacomo Petrobelli, who is one of the Pro-Am Cup drivers here, a man that just gets better and better and faster every year. First came to note in Formula Parma Audi when it was running largely for gentleman racers, and he was pretty quick in that, but it's really since he went into GT racing that he's come to real prominence. There's Frank Kechler, race leader, goes through, and in so doing does 18 laps of the race. The driver's getting ready to take over. Jérôme Demey there, who I think is therefore going to replace Marc Soord. Now Marc Soord has tumbled down the order. Remember, he was well up on the grid, and he's now in 33rd place, the venerable Marc Soord, who is not a slow driver. As I said early on, he's not in the first flush of youth, but he's still a very experienced and quick driver. Fuel pressure problems for Mike Hazemans, we understand, was why the car came to a halt, and so it wasn't a spin, it was mechanical, and big disappointment for Mark VDS Racing, as again the second car is the one that seems to have the problems. Blasting into Copse Corner, this is the battle between Jochen Habets and Andrea Piccini for 10th place. Piccini on the move. Is he going to be able to work his way now into contention? Let's see. It's a very strong driver combination as well in that car, because with Piccini, you've got Lawrence Vanthoor and Edward Sandstrom. The Audi goes through, heading up towards the Beckett Sessions. Piccini into the top 10, and off the road goes Habets. But of course there, all the run-off tarmac is going to save him. Rejoins, gets himself back ahead of the Audi in so doing. Now, is he going to cede the place? Yes, he does. Almost made a fight out of that, but I don't think by going off the road and taking the place back, that would earn him many friends in race control. So he slots back in behind the Audi, lives to fight another day. Cars on the hanger straight then. So Piccini up into the top 10. Next target for him is going to be Giacomo Petrobelli. Stefan Lemeray up into 8th place in the sister BMW, another car that's getting stronger. There's Nick Katzberg going out of Stowe, number 70, who is currently running in 12th place. So lap after lap, you've got cars working their way up and down the order, depending on who's behind the wheel and how the cars cope with the conditions. And another one, look there, the Nissan creeping into the picture. Alex Buncombe starting the car, and it's getting faster and faster as the race wears on. So the RJN Motorsport, Bob Neville's team, run. Nissan getting into the mix as well. Now Alex Buncombe, who's been racing and winning in the last few weeks in historic races, like in Jaguar E-Types and Jaguar XJSs, he's been racing as well in historic events, comes now through Farm up towards Village, and is he close enough to attack Nick Katzberg? Not there, he's not. And he gets right onto the tail of the Z4. It's going to be a proper battle as they come onto the Wellington Straight. At the end of lap number 19 then, Frank Kechler leads the way. There's the battle building up between Katzberg and Buncombe. Alex's dad, Jonathan Buncombe, still a very enthusiastic supporter of his son's racing, and himself a very successful super saloon and touring car racer. Second and third gap coming down though now. There you can see Rob Bell, and Gregoire de Moustier is up onto the tail of the Gulf Racing McLaren. So Kechler leading the way. That's second and third, the two McLarens absolutely together. De Moustier on the back now of Rob Bell, having a real go before we get to the first round of pit stops. Both of these cars are two-driver, not three-driver entries, unlike the race leader. And as they battle, of course, behind them in fourth place now is Zampieri, who's got himself up past Marcus Paltela. And in sixth place, you've got number 1, Christopher Mies. So the order looking a little bit different, and this battle for second is really coming alive now as the cars work their way onto the hanger straight once again. Rob Bell has been losing time for whatever reason, and now you've got de Moustier right up behind him. So this very intriguing situation, far from resolved. It's Gulf Racing versus ART Grand Prix. Into Stowe Corner they come. And as they work their way out of the right-hander down through Vale, Rob Bell's last lap was a 2:24, which was about 2 seconds slower than Kechler. He lost a second somewhere to de Moustier, and he's not exactly being able to pull away once more, is he? So is there something amiss with the number 9 Gulf Racing McLaren? Still running strongly, it's still second, but now Rob's having to defend. Vastly experienced driver is Rob in all manner of GT cars, but he came out of single-seater racing, formerly of Vauxhall Junior many years ago, then Formula Ford, Formula Renault V6. Drove the Paynos in the GT2 class at Le Mans to a class win, and that's really what launched him onto a GT racing career. So as he works his way now up towards the right-hander of Village, they've got the Ferrari 430 ahead that's going to be lapped in a moment, and Gregoire de Moustier now looking very towy to get past, tries one side, tries the other at Village. Which way does he go? Through the loop. Rob Bell already committing himself to try to get past the Ferrari, but de Moustier is right there behind the car, snaking a little bit as they apply the power. Out of Aintree now onto Wellington Straight, speed building all the time. 10 minutes to go before the end of the first hour, and those two McLarens running not just nose to tail but side by side now as they drop down towards Brooklands. The car ahead is about to be given a drive-through penalty, but de Moustier goes through and he takes up second place. He's stuck behind the Ferrari 430 that, having ignored the track limits, is about to get a drive-through penalty. The message hopefully will get through to the driver in a moment, because otherwise he's going to get in the way of the McLaren battle. It's Beniamino Caccia at the wheel of the car. The message hasn't yet got through. He gets out of the way of one McLaren. He should get out of the way of Rob Bell as well as they go through Woodcote. But Gregoire de Moustier then now up into second place as they make the run past the pits down towards Copse Corner. So the ART Grand Prix McLaren looking very strong indeed. Good single-seater team, ART, now turning its attention to sports cars, and successfully so. Class pole position set by Duncan Tappy, and going really well is Gregoire de Moustier then now in second place, and Rob Bell, having lost the spot, just losing a length or two as well. That last lap from Rob was a 2:25. There's certainly a bit of pace now ebbing away from that car. Is he going to be caught by Daniel Zampieri? Well, the gap between there, Rob Bell, and the red Ferrari of Zampieri behind him is 10.4 seconds. It's quite a lot for Zampieri to make up, especially as pit stops are looming, but it is possible that that could be a change before much longer. Cars heading for Stowe Corner, lap 21. Gregoire de Moustier comes out of club, looks strong at the moment, doesn't he, in that car? And Rob Bell not being able to respond. You can see the way the gap has opened up over the course of the lap. Not massively, but it's crept up over the corner since the pace change happened. And so there, de Moustier turning his way now through Abbey. That's the right-hander, left at Farm, then that short sprint up towards Village. This is for second and third. Zampieri is fourth. Now, how does he stack up in the sectors against Bell? Nearly a second quicker in sector 1. So the gap is certainly coming down between third and fourth. That's going to be the next one to look for. Although, as I say, we're not that far off the end of the first hour, and therefore pit stops are going to start to impact on this. The number 13 Mercedes we saw is in 26th place. It's still shown as having Koen Wouters behind the wheel, which makes me think it wasn't a routine stop. And there, charging up on the inside, look, Stéphane Lemray to get himself ahead of Matt Bell. So both of the McLarens there, of the Bell brothers, look as though they're losing time for whatever reason. Place dropped by Rob, a place dropped by Matt. On now to Wellington Straight goes 22. That's the United Autosports car that runs in the Pro Cup. Matt Bell to David Brabham to Alvaro Parent. That's the driver order we know for that car from what Alvaro was telling Haley Coxon in the pit lane a little while ago. Down to Brooklands then comes the McLaren, but Stéphane Lemray up into 7th place at the BMW, and another place I think lost there because Giacomo Petrobelli was that storming up on the inside. Petrobelli, somebody else as this hour has worn on that just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And what is it that's affecting the McLarens? Because that's two of them that have lost pace. Into the pit lane has come number 3, so that was Marcus Paltela that started, and we're now being told it's going to be Bas Leinders for the middle stint, which is the traditional way that the team operates that car. Bas Leinders goes second, and then Maxime Martin brings it home. There's another car that's just heading down the pit lane as well, 74, which is the Pro-Speed Porsche. Paul van Splunteren started it, and it looks like Dylan Deerdalen is going to do the second stint in the car. So now the pit lane is going to start to get pretty busy. Different teams cycling through their drivers. See how busy the battles still are out on track. As there, number 2, Andrea Piccini in 10th place, now tries to make a move on the Matt Bell-driven McLaren as they work their way along Hanger Straight once more. De Moustier currently lapping 2:22s. There's 11 in the pit lane. That's a Porsche that was a long, long way down the order. Started by stuntman Jean-Claude Lanier. There he is. Gets out of the car. Yeah, to watch the John Frankenheimer movie Ronin. Jean-Claude Lanier was the stunt coordinator for that film, and very experienced racing driver. He hops out. There's number 3 BMW rejoining. But of course that stop drops the car quite a long way down the order now, having done the driver change, fuel and tyres. Piccini up with Matt Bell as they work their way through Club Corner. Another car to watch, there are so many I know, but another one to keep an eye to is the 35 Nissan, because Alex Buncombe has just done the best first sector of anybody in the race so far. It kind of proves as well that the road is drying a little, but the Nissan absolutely storming on. Alex Buncombe then is running in 11th place there, just in the background. You caught a glimpse of him. Piccini to the inside, that's going to be for 9th at Village, and through he goes. The Audi moves up past the McLaren. Matt Bell, who's raced both cars, of course. He's raced Audis in his time as well, and he's now slotting back in behind Piccini, but I don't think he's going to be able to respond, because Andrea Piccini looks like he's got the pace now to break away in a straight line as they head along Wellington Straight once more. 11 Porsche gets going again, rejoins the race. Jean-Claude Lanier having brought the car in. We'll take stock in a moment of where we're up to. Let's just see what's going to happen by the end of this lap, because first of all, Demoustier has gone through. Rob Bell is still lapping in the 224s, and the gap is coming down between the top two. We're told there's no problem for Rob Bell, but the pace just not quite as good as one or two of those cars around him. So Zampieri is catching him. 10 seconds it was, 7.3 it is. It's another gap that's coming down, therefore. Christopher Mies 5th, there, 6th on the inside line. Stéphane Lemeray 7th behind, is 57. About to lap number 49 Ferrari, that is started in the race by Yannick Malagol. Banker, 34 Porsche back into the race. That was the car that Roland Berville spun earlier on. Made his first pit stop of the race, and he's now about to rejoin Roland Berville, having brought the car in 28th place. So as I say, you've got Rob Bell being caught by Daniel Zampieri, Matt Bell dropping back and now being caught by Alex Buncombe, who's up into the top 10. Nick Katzberg in 11th place, and BMW number 3, 19th, Bas Linders, having taken that car over. There's Stéphane Lemeray, who's trying to defend from Giacomo Petrobelli into Stoke Corner. And somebody there in trouble, that's the Viper, and that looks like it's got damage at the front, doesn't it, or a puncture, or both. Let's see. Heading down through Vale. Now, has that car had a driver change? No, it's still Luc Paillard at the wheel. A bit changes. Petrobelli goes up on the inside there to gain ground, heading towards Club Corner. Petrobelli gets ahead of Lemeray, then slides wide. The car squirming back up the inside. Comes the Belgian driver, but Giacomo Petrobelli is going to hang on in there. In the Ferrari, runs wide out over the curb in his efforts to hang on to the place. Giacomo Petrobelli then is now, having managed to hang on to that place, up into the top 6. Lemeray is 7th, 8th is Piccini in the Audi there, and it won't be long, I think, before Piccini gets up and past Lemeray as well. He's absolutely flying. As the road dries, different drivers getting quicker and quicker. There is the troubled Viper. No, it's not that side of the car where the damage is, it's the front right corner by the look of it, and that's going to limp its way to the pit lane. You can see Luc Paillard doing a very sensible thing, keeping out of everybody's way. Piccini up behind Lemeray, and Lemeray coming back at Petrobelli. Now they are moving across the wetter parts of the circuit to just make sure these wet tyres go the full distance of this first stint. Frank Kettler then leading the way, and the gap is 10.5 seconds to Grégoire Demoustier. It's coming down slightly, in fact. Demoustier starting to close up as the stint wears on. Next fascination is going to be who takes over from Kettler, Adam Carroll or Greg Franchi. There, limping back, is the Viper. Piccini here comes out of Woodcote. He's running on the tail of Stéphane Lemeray then as they go across the line. 7th and 8th, those two cars are. Side by side at Copse Corner. And as they go out of Copse, still Stéphane Lemeray is able to hang on to the place. Now, number 13, which was brought in by Koen Wouters, had a problem with the left front tyre, and Anthony Kumpen took the car over. That's the information we're getting from the pit lane. 26th is at the moment Anthony Kumpen, who, as I say, is now doing the middle stint, and it's another one, therefore, that will get itself up the order as pit stops to cycle through. Bas Linders, I think I told you, had rejoined in 19th. Well, the screen's updated itself. 25th, indeed, he is. So after the pit stop, he's 25th. There's number 30, which Peter Belshaw had been off the road with. Should be Craig Wilkins to do the middle stint in that car. That's how it normally pans out. So more and more pit stops work their way through. And let's have a quick update of the order, because Frank Kettler leads there. He is, with chasing after him Grégoire Demoustier. 10.5 seconds is the gap between them. And into the pit lane has come the Gulf Racing McLaren then, Rob Bell, to give way to Mike Wainwright after a very, very good first stint. Never quite got the car in the lead, but it was a really good effort, that, by Rob. So that's going to promote Daniel Zampieri up into 3rd place. Christopher Mies running strongly at the moment. He'll work his way up into 4th. Into 5th will become Giacomo Petrobelli's Ferrari. Into 6th is going to go Stéphane Lemeray. Still the best lap of the race, credited to Mike Hazeman. Still the Viper is limping back. You can just see it in the background. And there, the leading car, Frank Kettler. The BMW did not look quite as strong as it does here at Monza, did it, in the opening round? You almost forgot it was there, but in the press conference yesterday, Frank Kettler admitting that they've done quite a bit of work on the car, and this is more of a BMW circuit, he said. Well, Mark VDS Racing clearly thought Monza was a BMW circuit because the car of their team came out on top. Here, though, Bas Linders, having taken over early from Marcus Paltela, finds himself with quite a bit of work to do. I still wonder whether all was well for that car, because it seemed to be quite a long stop for number 3 BMW. That's something else maybe that Haley can attempt a word out of the team about and see whether they did lose extra time in the pit lane, because I just feel that car may have rejoined lower down than you'd expect it to. Kechler still working his way through traffic, and you can see there the clock is about to hit the end of the first hour. More and more back markers up the road for the young German driver to thread away by. In comes 36 Lemeray, and in behind him comes Andrea Piccini. So now more and more pit stops cycling through. Long wide pit lane at Silverstone, so the order now starts to shuffle again. Stefan Lemeray comes in. Ferrari rejoins in the background. That was number 10, which was started by Gabriel Balthazar, so that has been in for the driver change also. 23 comes in, so the United Autosports McLaren, Zach Brown, Mark Patterson and Mark Blundell, the drivers. Zach Brown did the opening stint in that car, and Anthony Kumper trying to charge his way back into contention as well, up into 24th place now, going after Bas Linders. Number 14 Mercedes also still looking quite strong. It was Marius Rischkes that did the opening stint in that car. So the field currently working lap 25. Frank Kechler it is who leads the way. Comes up now into Village, then towards the loop, and out of the tight left-hander, speed build through Aintree and onto Wellington Straight. How long then before Kechler makes a pit stop? The gap's coming down still between him and de Moustier. It was well over 10 seconds, 9.5 it is now. So as the beautiful one Team Italy drivers get ready for the pit stops. We've got an hour and 58 minutes of the race to go. We've had the first third completed then, and Frank Kechler's BMW leads the way. Comes up now through Luffield for a pit stop imminent for the BMW. Tell Greg Fonchy to do the next stint in that car, but not this lap, I don't think. Frank Kechler comes through, has to get himself up past Raul Goethe once again. 82 Viper, by the way, has limped into the pit lane. Remember, we saw the car slow on track. Well, it has now made it to the pit lane. So that's going to be another car that will lose quite a lot of time, of course, because there's the tyre to replace and damage to sort out. The Gentleman Trophy lost a car before the race, so it's going to be the survival of the fittest there, I think. Right, Kechler turning his way through Beckett's. De Moustier 8.3 seconds behind. This gap really is coming down. One of the Gulf McLarens off in the background, but again using the run-off tarmac to good effect. There is De Moustier, and he's still pushing on, so going strongly. The gap in the first sector, let's just see, because it's completed by Kechler now. The McLaren comes over that intermediate, and in the first sector takes 3/10 out of the gap. There's Daniel Zampieri. Now he's third now after the Rob Bell pit stop to give way to Mike Wainwright, and Zampieri is lapping quicker than the two ahead of him. Now he's 22 seconds, give or take, off the race lead, but he's getting quicker and quicker all the while. Number 1 Audi going really wide into Stoke Corner there as Christopher Mies looks for some more grip. This is the car now that's in 5th place, but he's dropping away a bit from Zampieri, so I think it's now going to be the two co-drivers that really do the hard graft in that car and get it well into contention. But Christopher Mies has not done a bad job at all in the opening stint. Giacomo Petrobelli is catching him behind in the Ferrari. Petrobelli really has been something of a standout in the first part of the race in the Pro-Am Cup. It's the Andrea Ceccato Ferrari into the pit lane. It's going to be given over to Michael Lyons, so Michael was telling me, and then Josh Wakefield having his first race with the team to bring it home in the third stint. The road is getting drier now, and we're starting to see 1 or 2 improved lap times for the drivers. Kechler turning his way out of Brooklands. Now, is this the lap on which he's going to come into the pit lane? The gap, 8.3 seconds at the start of it, 8.1 now after you've completed 2 sectors. And it looks as though as the BMW powers its way out of Luffield, it's going to stay out for at least 1 more lap. Adam Carroll, one of the 2 co-drivers, ready for his first ever GT race, only got the phone call on Thursday. The team rang up, Carl Barkins rang him and said, "Do you want to drive at Silverstone then?" And Adam was meant to be going to Austria for 2 days to do some driver coaching and then to Ireland to demonstrate a GP2 car at a street-based event and said, yep, definitely, cancelled everything. Got here on Friday, sat in the car, had a look around it, drove it for the first time on Saturday, and was 34 thousandths of a second away from pole position. Quite a remarkable story yesterday, and it could well be a dream win. First time ever in a GT car for Adam Carroll, you never know. But it's a long way to go as 35 Nissan comes down the pit lane. That is the Alex Buncombe-driven car. And that was up into the top 6, helped not only by Alex's pace, but by one or two others cycling through their pit stops. Number 23 has gone to Mark Patterson. He's done the middle. He's doing the middle stint in that car. Just trying to keep track of everybody in the stops now. David Jones giving way to Godfrey Jones, his brother. Mike Jordan does the last stint. 22 comes in then. So out gets Matt Bell. In will get David Brabham. That's what Alvaro Perent was telling us. The plan is for the Pro Cup United Autosports car. Nick Katzberg has brought number 70 into the pit lane. Mark Hayek is in. Well, we know that's going to go to Peter Cox. That's easy. 18 Mercedes has come in. And 88 Jordan Grogor comes in as well. That should go to Leon Price now. Now the 22 McLaren, David Brabham takes over. There he is, straps himself in. Matt Bell has got out, Brabs gets in. Tyres, fuel, driver makes himself as comfortable as possible. And David now has to get Le Mans out of his brain and sports prototypes and GT cars, Silverstone and Rain into his mindset. Vastly experienced and versatile driver, ex-Formula 1 racer, Le Mans winner, both outright and class. You can see the BMW parked up behind him, so even though Silverstone is a big, long pit lane, this number of cars, it still gets very, very busy. It'd be good to hear from Matt Bell after the stint to see what it was all about. Certainly towards the end, he seems to be losing touch a little bit. The refuelling is done. That means you can do the second part of the pit stop and put the new tyres on. Old Michelin's off, new Michelin's on, and then the car to rejoin. There's the Ecurie-Cos BMW that is shown as having now Ollie Milroy behind the wheel of the car, having taken over from historic racer Joe Twyman. Marco Attard joining Ecurie-Cos this weekend to do the other stint in that car, and 79 now is in 42nd place after his first pit stop, keeping the McLaren at bay. Look, heading down there, that's the Mike Wainwright driven number 9 car. Now where did that drop to after the pit stop? 22nd is the answer. So the relative pace of Mike Wainwright, plus the fact, of course, that it was in for fuel and tyres, means that it's dropped down the order. The leading car comes in then at the end of lap 27. Down the pit lane comes Frank Kekela. And also in comes number 12, which is Gregoire de Moustier. Well, that's going to go to Duncan Tappy and Greg Franchi and Adam Carroll, the two drivers that share with the German driver Frank Kekela. So into the car now. Seatbelts to be done up. And is this going to give, it should do, Daniel Zampieri the race lead? Let's see. Gregoire de Moustier in to hand over to Duncan Tappy. Duncan Tappy, we know, is a very, very quick driver, former Formula Renault UK champion. There's the leading BMW. Pit stop cycles through. On go the new tyres. And up into second place behind Zampieri will now go Giacomo Petrobelli. So we've got the BMW about to rejoin, does so now, down the pit lane. And 57 Giacomo Petrobelli then picks up second place behind Daniel Zampieri, and there's a Mercedes getting a bit sideways just up the road ahead of it and having a spin, in fact, so that's something that the leading cars can well do without. That marker having all sorts of strife, but getting away with that. So Greg Franchi in number 66 back into the race. And 73, which has already had a drive-through penalty applied to it, now has a drama up at the Beckett's S's as well. That's the Ferrari 430 Scuderia, class winner at Monza. Getting into trouble coming through the Beckett's S's this time through. It started by Benigno Caccia, that car. It's now gone to Paolo Andreassi. And this is the leader, yet to pit, number 71, Daniel Zampieri. How much further can he go before he's got to come in for fuel? He's looked after it well, that's for sure. So he's gone a lap longer than the cars he was chasing. So we had that long safety car period, but even allowing for that, as I say, he's gone a lap longer than the two cars he was chasing, the leading BMW, the leading McLaren of now Franchi and Tappy respectively. They came in at the end of 27 laps. At the end of 28 possibly the Ferrari will come in. He may go even longer. So Daniel Zampieri leading the way, and now I suppose trying to build up something of an advantage. He's also defending from the Ecurie-Cos BMW that he's just lapped, the Ollie Milroy, Joe Twyman, Marco Attard car. And it's in this time, yes, so 28 laps done by the Ferrari. And in comes Zampieri. the Ferrari 430 that we saw having its spin a little while ago, the drive-through penalty was for not respecting the track limits. 4 times it was found having exceeded the track limits. That's why the stewards decided that the drive-through penalty was applicable. So there's a confirmation of that from the stewards' bulletin. So that's why that car was summoned into the pit lane for the drive-through. Leader in then, 71. Stops, Daniel Zampieri hops out of the car. And lots of Italian brio and shouting and panic about all of this to try and get the pit stop done effectively. So, not quite as smooth as 1 or 2 other pit stops we have seen. Meantime, here is 66, the reigning champion, Greg Franchi. Fascinating to see how his lap times stack up against his co-drivers then in this race, as well as the opposition, because in Frank Kekler and Adam Carroll, he's certainly got 2 very, very quick co-drivers. And it's all going wrong by the look of it at 71. Beating the roof of the car, I don't think has helped speed up the pit stop, but it's certainly a new tactic employed by the team at Kessel Racing. So the car is losing time for whatever reason. Now the fuel goes in. Mechanics wait to change wheels when the refueling element of the pit stop is done. That's certainly one for Haley to go and investigate what all the commotion's been about. But it's losing time now. In has come Petrobelli as well. So the top 2 on the track are now in. And while all these pit stops have cycled through, up into 2nd place has come Bas Linders. So it was a good idea to stop early, and Bas Linders has just got on with the job and now has worked his way up into what's going to become 2nd place because of the cars ahead being in the pit lane. So race order, 66 leading the way, Greg Franchi from number 3. This is on lap 29 now. So Bas Linders is 2nd. Up into 3rd, number 1 Audi. Christopher Mies now at the wheel according to the screen still. Then you've got number 2 Laurens Vanthoor having taken over from Andrea Piccini, and the next car is number 13, which is Anthony Kumpen in the Mercedes. So as always, as pit stops cycle through, things start to become quite intriguing. 35 has now become Jan Mardenborough for Nissan, and there is 22 David Brabham, shown as being in 13th place. Kessel Racing calming down, sort of, after the frantic pit stop. Stefano Gattuso took over that car, but after Daniel Zampieri's great efforts, I think it's going to drop down the order. White Ferrari getting into strife there, and Greg Franchi in traffic behind 74 Porsche, which was started by Paul van Splunteren, and then Dylan Deerdahl took over at the first round of pit stops, although it's back showing as Van Splunteren on the timing screen, but that might be a transponder setting problem in the Porsche. It's down to the drivers to do that, put the transponder in the right place rather than the timekeepers, because they can't override it. So dependent on the teams and drivers flicking the switch to the right setting. Greg Franchi being held up a little bit by the Porsche. Makes his move now on the inside, coming through Luffield, powering his way up towards the completion of the lap. So as he comes over the timing line, now then, 66 BMW that started on pole position, comes through, back into the lead of the race. I say back into because, of course, after the pit stops, the order shuffled a little bit. Now, where's the 2nd place car? Let's have a look at the gap when they come over the line. Number 3, Bas Linders, goes through, and the gap between the top 2 is 8.3 seconds. And Bas Linders is lapping in the 2.22s, and Greg Franchi, who's much less into his stint, admittedly, is lapping in the 2.26s. So Bas Linders is lapping quicker than the race leader. That gap is going to come down and down. So Mark VDS Racing, whisper it, might be already looking at a 2nd win of the season. But I think a lot's going to happen yet in this race. So chickens need not be counted just yet. The spinning Ferrari was 38, incidentally. Just recovering over at village. Alessandro Bonetti having started that car. Giving way to Jay Palmer. And it was Jay Palmer that was having the drama. And what else is going on? Lots. 22 McLaren with David Brabham at the wheel of it, accelerating its way now onto Hanger Straight. So 66 leads the way, Greg Franchi from number 3, Bas Linders BMW. In 3rd place, number 1, Christopher Hasse. In 4th, number 2, Laurens Vanthoor. In 5th place is number 13, Anthony Kumpen. 6th is number 12, Duncan Tappy. 7th is the 36 BMW, now Jeffrey Van Hooydonk. In 8th place, 37, which has gone the way of Simon Knapp. In 8th place is 24, still being shown as Mark Hayek. In fact, I think he will have double stinted because it's a 2-driver car, that. So Mark Hayek stays behind the wheel. And then in 10th place is 57, Still being shown as Giacomo Petrobelli, but often that's another car that doesn't get the transponder in the right position. It certainly didn't at Monza, so try and work out as the race pans out who took over in 57. Jan Mardenborough has taken over 35, and that car currently runs in 11th and 12th, so it's a longish stop, I think, there for David Brabham. 13th is 75, that's the Porsche Xavier Marson now at the wheel of it. And then 14th is 71, Stefano Gattuso. That was the car, remember, that led coming in, but had that rather frantic pit stop, which we're trying to get to the bottom of. It's Haley's next target is Kessel Racing to find out what was going on in this pits. Classes, the Pro Cup is as overall. In 66th there, the leading BMW, ahead of Bas Linders, ahead of Christopher Hasse. In Pro-Am, it's Duncan Tappy leading from BMW of Simon Knapp, and then Mark Hayek third in the class. And the Gentleman Trophy being led by number 41, which is currently being driven by Pierre Hershey, Robert Hissam having started that car. And the Gentleman Trophy, as we've seen, rather self-destructing, the Viper having limped in with damage, not rejoining. There's Bas Linders. The gap was 8.3. It is now, in the space of a lap, down to 3.9 seconds. So, as we saw at Monza, Bas Linders absolutely flying. And Maxime Martin, who normally gets the job and will do of bringing it home, is quicker again. Raoul Goethe into the pit lane, staying in the car, because it's a two-driver effort that, so he double stints, and he has to do a greater amount of work than Jamie Campbell-Walter does in that car. Bas Linders busy flashing his headlights at cars up the road. So as the leaders work their way down Hanger Straight, the first sector is completed by Greg Franchi. He's lost only a tenth there. Bas Linders is certainly being held up here in traffic, so that's compromising him a little bit at the moment. Threads his way past the Van Splunter and Dierdala Porsche. Now he's going to get past the next back marker heading down through Vale as well. It's the J. Palmer Ferrari by the look of it. Another car, 15th, is worth watching. Number 20, Ludovic Badet, is taken over from Patrice Goillard, who was last on the first lap, and that's now carving its way through the field. So Ludovic Badet in 15th place will be another one, I think, in the Pro-Am class to watch as the race unfolds. And still there is a lot to pan out up front as well, because the lead gap is coming down all the while. There's Greg Franchi then, working his way up towards the left-hander at the loop, and then speed builds onto the Wellington Straight. But how much longer will it be before that car is right up behind him? Bas Linders getting closer and closer all the while. Accelerates onto Wellington Straight. No back markers between them, at least for now, so that's going to help matters. Again, looking for the slightly wetter part of the road there to preserve the tyres through this stint is Bas Linders. And getting confirmation now that Mark Hayek did not double stint. Peter Cox is going to be driving 24. Yes, in fact, he's now with the assistance of the team on the radio. Flip the transponder switch to the correct setting. So Peter Cox is at the wheel of 24 now. Therefore, the car becomes even more significant, because it laps quicker straight away than 2, 3, 4 cars ahead of it. And Peter Cox will gain some ground, although Mark Hayek will have to get back into it. So it may lose out a little bit in the final few laps. But again, it's going to be one to watch now with Peter Cox at the wheel. See what I mean about this long list of cars to watch? It grows and grows all the while. So the race leader turning his way now up through Beckett. There behind, riding the curbs, is Bas Linders. Is this gap going to continue to come down at this rate? Looks like it may well do, because Bas Linders, we know, is very, very rapid indeed. And he works his way now onto the Hanger Straight once again, with the Ruffier Racing Porsche just up the road ahead of them. The gap had gone up, in fact, last time to 4 seconds. That was a legacy of traffic. Into Stowe Corner comes Bas Linders. Then remember, this is the car, the team that won first time out this year at Monza, but also the last 2 races of last year, so very much on a roll, Mark VDS. Peter Cox, 9th at the moment. He's lapping in the 221s. He's quicker than everybody ahead of him. So Peter Cox lapping in the 221s at the moment, and he is faster than all of the cars ahead of him in the classification. So that's another one that's going to rise up the order before the end of this stint for Peter Cox. We know that he's fast. He doesn't really have to prove himself, but he only knows one way to drive, and that's flat out. So certainly he's going to be hustling on over the next part of this stint as he works his way onto the Hanger Straight. Now, the car that he's chasing after is 37. which is now Simon Knapp having taken over from Jochen Haberts, and a really crowded house here as the two Audis get themselves together for third place, and that was Laurens Vanthoor in number 2 trying to get past Christopher Hasse, but they just came out of Abbey in the same order. There's a yellow flag waving up the road. Somebody's had dramas then at Village. Let's try and spot who it is in a moment, but for third place now, battle well and truly joined. To the inside there goes Vanthoor. Yellow flag had been withdrawn, thankfully, in the nick of time, so the two Audis switch over, and number 2 gets ahead of number 1. There's Daniel Zampieri, looking very agitated. Now remember that we saw all the commotion during the pit stop. This was what was going on afterwards, even more argument. As I say, we'd like to hear from Daniel if Haley gets an opportunity just to try and work out what all the arguing was about, but Kessel Racing certainly not at all happy about what was going on in that pit stop. Now, for Audi, the cars change order. Laurens Vanthoor gets himself up and past Christopher Hasse. 2 goes ahead of 1. And how do their lap times stack up then against the leading BMWs? Greg Franchi has just done a 2:25. Bas Linders has done a 2:22. The gap now, starting lap 33, is just 1.3 seconds between the leaders. Greg Franchi looks like he's on borrowed time here. Adam Carroll is going to have to be a real hero, as we know he is, in the last stint to try and hang on to a race win for that car. But is Bas Linders going to be able to go through and build up a gap in advance of that? Onto the hanger straight comes the leader, now comes second. And the car sprinting their way down towards Stowe. Flashing of lights there from Bas Linders in second place. In the first sector he loses out, and that again is thanks to traffic. When he gets a clear road, much quicker is the Mark VDS BMW seemingly now than the Vita 4-1 car up the road ahead. So Greg Franchi leads, but for how much longer? There, catching him is the predominantly silver and yellow BMW of Bas Linders. In third place now is number 2, Laurens Vanthoor, who's 11 seconds back. Fourth is number 1, Christopher Hasse. In 5th place is Duncan Tappy, who still leads the Pro-Am class. In 6th place, it is Anthony Kumpen. In 7th place, the BMW Jeffrey Van Hooydonk. 8th now, Peter Koch, so he's gained a place already. 9th is Simon Knapp, and 10th is 57, which Giacomo Petrobelli started. And it's still being shown as Petrobelli behind the wheel, but it can't be because we've seen them do a driver change in that car. So, as the cars come out of the loop into Aintree now, you can see how this gap is coming down and down and down between the top 2. 57, Alessandro Bonaccini. The timing screen has just updated itself, so Bonaccini doing the middle stint in that car. BMW battle on track. Let's find out how the leading car is going and hear from Adam Carroll, who's with Haley.
Adam, is there an issue with the BMW?
No, I don't think so. I haven't heard anything yet. I think the car is going fine, and the weather's just, the rain started to get a little bit heavier, but apart from that, everything seems to be good.
Looking forward to your race debut?
Yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, it's obviously wet, and I've never driven the car in the wet, or drove the car yesterday for the first time ever, so you know, I just got to go out, get used to the car, and then bring it home.
Thank you.
How about this for a lead battle then? Greg Franchi, reigning champion, in the car that Adam Carroll will take over, versus Bas Linders, winner of the first round of the championship. The two BMWs almost side by side, heading up towards Maggots into Beckett's, but no way through there. So Greg Franchi now is under pressure. The car's twitching as they hunt for some grip going through the very fast, very daunting Beckett's S's. And now they sprint up towards Chapel Curve. Greg Franchi missing the apex for the last part of the Beckett's S's. He is under pressure, and he's certainly feeling it now. Bas Linders right there behind him. Bas Linders, remember, massively experienced driver, one-time Minardi test driver. From karting to Formula 4 to Formula 3 to sports cars, you name it, he's driven them, he's won in them, and he's the team manager as well of Mark VDS, so he is, if you like, the player manager. He knows how to operate the team as well as race the cars. So going very, very well here. Lines up for a go on the inside. Is he near enough? I don't think he is. So as they drop down to the end of Vale into Club Corner, those two cars still running together. And there's more traffic up the road ahead of them. The Ferrari that was started by Howard Blank is the first, sorry, by Yannick Malagold. Now Howard Blank is the next car that they're going to have to work their way past. So here they come. And again, Bas Linders gets out of the spray, has a look, thinks, no, not going to do it there because there's traffic up the road, and round the outside of the Ferrari goes Greg Franchi. Is he going to get through? Yes, he does, and Bas Linders is right with him. The Ferrari monstered out of the way. Where does Linders go to make his attack for the lead? He looks on the outside, coming into Village. That doesn't pay off. He gets to the outside, going up towards the loop. Fantastic stuff, this. Almost at the halfway point of the race, and Bas Linders tries to go all the way around the outside. That doesn't work. He tries to duck to the inside, coming now through the left-hander at Aintree, and that doesn't pay off either. Greg Franchi's car may not be the quickest BMW in the race at the moment, but he's got pretty wide, sharp elbows as Greg, and so he's able to keep Linders at bay. But for how much longer? Here comes Bas up the inside down to Brooklands, but he backs out of it. Greg Franchi comes across, gets back in the lead and misses the apex completely. Tries to recover it. Again, Bas Linders has to back out of it. There's Mike Hesemans in civvies now, watching the sister car involved in a great lead battle. Quite sure what the demeanour is going to be at Vita 4-1 here. One of high tension, I think, because they're on borrowed time with this lead for the moment. Greg Franchi has been reeled in by Bas Linders, the reigning champion now. He's going to have to work really hard to hang on to the lead as they go down towards Copse Corner. We're on now to lap number 35. The leaders almost overlap, but again, Bas Linders can't quite get up alongside Greg Franchi. The BMW Z4 very much becoming the car to have in GT3 racing these days, certainly in the Blancpain series, that's for sure. And again, they almost overlap at Maggots. But you can see the experience of Bas Linders here. He's not going to force the issue with so much of the race to go. He's proved to Greg Franchi that that is a very quick car that's sitting right on the Belgian driver's tail. And you can see as well how much of the road he's using. There's barely a bit of curb that Bas Linders hasn't left a footprint on. Right, back marker ahead. They're on to Hanger Straight now, out of Chapel Curve, down towards Stowe. And who's going to dive out of the slipstream and go which way? They both go one way. Bas Linders slots back in. Is he going to try and dive out the inside of Greg Franchi? He might try, but it doesn't pay off for him. The Black Falcon Mercedes, the 18 car of Curtis, Jans and Parisi. Mike Parisi, the French driver there, who will be the third driver. That car getting out of the way. Maxime Martin, who will take over from Bas Linders, nervously watches as the leaders come now, still with traffic ahead of them, to the end of Vale. Franchi goes a little bit deep into the corner there. He runs wide into the next part of Club. Bas Linders up the inside line, easily goes through. Just forced that tiny error out of Greg Franchi. Through he goes. Big grin from Bert Langevin, and it's not even his car. His has retired from the race, but it's the sister car that leads. Here comes Franchi, then back on the inside to try to retake the lead. Can he do it? No, but it was a really good effort, that, as they head up towards Abbey. So Greg Franchi has lost the lead, but he's not taking it lying down. Round the outside of the McLaren to put a lap on the Gulf Racing car comes Bas Linders, but I think now he has just broken away enough. Yes, because there, look, as Mike Wainwright turns number 9 into Village, that breaks up the lead battle. So it's happened at Club Corner. Bas Linders goes through on lap number 35. New race leader, the Mark VDS racing car, that was, remember, quite a long way down. 25th after that first pit stop. It's worked its way back up, as others, of course, have made their pit stops. And now, as at Monza, we're looking at Bas Linders, who brought the car not just into contention, but into the lead of the race. And look at the gap in the space of 3 corners, coming now into the stadium. Number 3 BMW picks up the race lead with an hour and 32 minutes of this second round of the Blancpain Endurance Series still to run. Greg Franchi then in second place, and straight away it's worth looking at the gap between him and Laurens Vanthoor. End of lap 35. Bas Linders leads. Second is Greg Franchi. Third is number 2 Laurens Vanthoor. The BMWs have both gone by. I'm waiting for the Audi that goes through now, and it's 3 seconds. Greg Franchi to Laurens Vanthoor is just 3 seconds, so that's going to change before long, I think, given the relative pace of the cars. Franchi's doing 2:26s. Laurens Vanthoor's last lap was quicker than the top 2, but of course Linders was stuck behind Franchi, so now we'll get an idea of what Bas Linders' lap times are like, having got the race lead. But I think Franchi may not hang on to that second place for a whole lot longer. This is how we stand now. BMW 3 from BMW 66. Linders from Franchi. Third, you've got Laurens Vanthoor, and in fourth, it's Christopher Hasse. Fifth, class-leading McLaren is Duncan Tappy. Sixth, BMW of Jeffrey Van Hooydonk. And 23, McLaren, turning its way out of Copse Corner, the United Autosports car, which is the one that runs in the Pro-Am class that was started by Zach Brown. Mark Patterson has it in 28th place as he works his way now up through the Beckett's S's. Stefano Gattuso down at the moment in 13th place after the rather chaotic pit stop for Daniel Zampieri. 12 goes through, that's Duncan Tappy. Now what are Duncan's lap times like? 2:26 last time, so he's not yet catching the Audis. Start him young, you know, as fans of the Blancpain Endurance Series here. a 12 Tappy, Stowe corner. He's chasing after Christopher Haase, but for the moment not, because he's in traffic, being able to close that gap down. But significantly, Duncan is heading Peter Cox in the Pro-Am class. So looking interesting this, isn't it? McLaren versus Lamborghini for honours in Pro-Am as the cars work their way down to the end of the Vale. Bas Linders, having got the lead, starting to do his best to edge away now from Greg Franchi. But Laurens Vanthoor is a man in a real hurry behind. He's the next man to watch. But again, a lot of this at the moment is dependent on traffic. As soon as you get caught up behind back markers, it becomes a rather different situation. Peter Cox, an update on him. He's up into 8th place now, working his way up the order. 36 is Jeffrey Van Hooydonk, you saw go through. He's now 6th in the BMW, having taken the car over from Stefan Lemeray. Jeffrey Van Hooydonk, a lap ago, got himself past Anthony Kumpen, whose Mercedes he's taken over from Koen Wouters, but he's just fading ever so slightly, and if he's not careful, he's going to be caught before much longer by Peter Cox. There is the white Lamborghini, and there's the Mercedes, nipping up the inside of Jay Palmer to try to lap him, and that didn't work, so Kumpen is delayed, but the Mercedes, before long, is going to be attacked by Peter Cox. Look, he just pulls out of the traffic and blasts down Wellington Straight to try to make a move on Kumpen. Kumpen sees him coming and defends. Difficult for drivers this, for having their own battles and working their way through traffic, and Kumpen goes wide at Brooklands, and there's contact even as Cox bounces off the side of the Mercedes. Not sure Kumpen expecting Peter Cox to be quite so uncompromising, but the Lamborghini goes through. Peter Cox brushes the Mercedes aside, and that's quite a heavy car to whack against, but he's gained the place up to 7th now, Peter Cox. Lamborghini powering its way over the line, down towards Woodcote Corner. That wiper not on because Peter Cox doesn't think he needs it, or has it failed on him? See whether that comes back on, but certainly Mark Hayek had the wiper again. Peter Cox may just be letting the air pressure pass the water away. That may fail. If it rains again, and it has failed, it's going to be a real handicap for the team. Up with the Beckett's S's now goes Cox. Does he run out of road? He runs deep. The headlights flashing toward the Ferrari ahead, but he's in a hurry and he wants that car to move out of his way. Onto the hanger straight in a moment will come Peter Cox. Touring car star, GT star, single-seater star many years ago. And as he works his way through the traffic, he comes down the hanger straight now, heading towards Stowe Corner once again. Up front, Bas Linders is 2 seconds ahead of Greg Franchi, who is 2 seconds ahead of Laurens Vanthoor. So the gap 2nd to 3rd continues to come down as well. The Gentleman Trophy currently being headed by number 41, which is Pierre Hershey, having taken over from Robert Hissam. And this is a replay of Peter Cox diving up the inside of the Mercedes of Anthony Kumpen that had missed its apex anyway, tried to turn in, but by the time Kumpen had turned in, there was a Lamborghini dead set alongside, so contact rather inevitable. Peter Cox just carries on regardless. 7th he is, Jeffrey Van Hooydonk next target, Cox lapping quicker, and he's got to make up 6.3 seconds. He should be able to do that, given the pace that the car seems to have. It's a shame there aren't more Lamborghinis, in fact, in the Blancpain Endurance Series this year, but those that we have are very quick cars indeed, and it's good to have Cox and Hayek back in the series, having missed the opening round at Monza. Ferrari-Audi battles going on here, including the Gentleman Trophy Audi, which was started by Jan Brunstedt, now has Jochen Mangs at the wheel of it. That's the silver, green and yellow car drifting out wide. Jan Mardenborough, the PlayStation Academy winner from last year, nips past him, and Jan Mardenborough has got right behind him, look now, the BMW of Simon Knapp. That means that Jan Mardenborough has worked his way past the BMW. Jan Mardenborough, his first full season of racing, not yet been racing for 12 months. Very impressive young driver indeed, as to be fair, all the previous winners of the PlayStation Academy have been impressive. Diving down towards the end of Wellington Straight. Whoops, pretty committed. The Ferrari there, which is a lap back, diving up the inside. Jay Palmer getting himself up past 57, which is on the lead lap. And that's the car now with Bonaccini at the wheel of it. Now the gap 2nd to 3rd, which was coming down, has come right down. 0.3 of a second at the start of the lap. The pace will change at Stowe by the look of it, because now to the inside line goes Laurens Vanthoor, and through goes the Audi. Laurens Vanthoor, who finished strongly at the Macau Grand Prix. He was the runner-up there in 2010. If you go well at Macau, you can go well anywhere. And he's now up into 2nd spot here, so he pushes the car that had dominated the first hour of the race down to 3rd. Instantly it shows how different cars react with different drivers, the different pace of drivers, because we've got a completely different order, completely different shape to the race now than we had for that first hour. That car there dominated the first stint, now it's 3rd. Marcus Paltler having been there or thereabouts in number 3 BMW. Bas Linders now leads the race in it, and number 2, when Andrea Piccini was driving it and it was creeping its way up through the top 10, is now storming along in 2nd place. And Laurens Vanthoor, it's a shame in a sense that his single-seater career has now come to an end, because he's certainly a talented driver, but he's making a big mark in sports car racing, as down the pit lane, no, sorry, just going slowly, comes the Mercedes. I thought it was limping into the pits. It's not, it's just a reduced pace for Anthony Kumpen. Now, is that because of the damage, or some damage, because of the clash with Peter Cox? The car's sector times have certainly gone up, and it's not looking as quick as once it did, and it's been reeled in, look, by 57 Ferrari. So, minor panic, but it's not yet in the pits, but it may well have to come in. Alessandro Bonaccini, looking 57, is right on the back of the ailing Mercedes now. Anthony Kumpen makes his way up towards the right-hander of Abbey. This currently the battle, which is for 8th and 9th places, but I think the Ferrari is going to be able to nip by the Merc without too much trouble here. Kumpen, normally a pretty quick driver, but I just wonder whether the car has suffered a bit of damage after the Peter Cox clash that it had a lap ago. Look behind them, there's Jan Mardenborough, and that off the road, the United Autosports McLaren 22. Is that David Brabham? I think it is. And Brabham doesn't often do things like that, so how's he got there? Question mark. Into the gravel goes the United Autosports McLaren. And in the meantime, Jan Mardenborough's Nissan, you're looking at the back of it, continues to hunt down this battle ahead. Kumpen under real pressure as he comes now in traffic down toward Brooklands, but the black and red Nissan is almost up with this battle that's going to be side by side again. Kumpen has that rather wide approach to Brooklands, and Bonaccini looking for a way past him. Mardenborough through traffic right round the outside at Luffield. Anthony Kumpen hangs onto that place. Over the timing line they come now. We have currently had 38 laps completed. Bas Linders leads the way. And there is David Brabham trying to get going. He wants a push start to get him out of the gravel. Come on, chaps, he says. The marshal's not interested in giving him a push start. They will be on the radio to race control to say, are we able to give this car a push? And if the race director says no, then that's really out of David Brabham's hands. It's out of their hands as well. So David wants a push, and the marshals will await instruction, I think, from the race director. But the fact that they're walking away would rather seem to suggest it ain't going to happen. Disappointing that for David Brabham. So as he is in the gravel bed, you're looking at number 36, Jeffrey Van Hooydonk here, working his way through traffic, coming through Stoke Corner. Ahead of him is 74, still being shown as Paul van Splunteren, who started in that car, but can't believe that's the case anymore. So as he works his way through the club, Dylan Didara, I think, will be the man behind the wheel of it now. And Jeffrey Van Hooydonk, 6th, looking to try and do something about Duncan Tappy ahead of him, and last time he lapped ever so slightly quicker. The Gentleman Trophy at the moment being led, as I was saying a little while ago, by the Audi in the hands now of Pierre Hershey, being chased by a similar car but from a different team, JB Motorsport. Jan Brunstedt's team, Jocke Mang, was at the wheel of it. And then a lap back after its stop-go penalty is the Ferrari 430 that won at Monza. That now has Paolo Andreassi at the wheel of it. They're the only 3 survivors, because we've lost a Lamborghini pre-race and we have lost a Viper during the race with damage. Has this Kumpen, Bonaccini and Mardenborough battle getting on. Bonaccini up the inside. In fact, they've both got past already, haven't they? They've both got past Kumpen. That's the Godfrey Jones Mercedes, a lap back that they're trying to wriggle away past. But Kumpen is fading. He's lost 2 more places on this lap alone. So all is not well, I think, with that Mercedes. Jan Mardenborough storming on, but in traffic he's lost ground. Looks to the Ferrari. They were together 2 corners back, but because of the back markers, so Jan Mardenborough has lost out a bit. Now he fights back in a straight line, flashes his lights at the Gulf Racing McLaren ahead, and goes past Roel Goethe, who will stay at the wheel of number 69. Godfrey Jones gets past as well. Mike Jordan to do the 3rd stint in the Cressy Spark Mercedes is there. Bas Linders works his way down towards Stowe, but behind him, Laurens Vanthoor took 3 tenths out of him alone in this sector, and the gap of 1.5 seconds coming into Stowe Corner. Now, let's hear from the Audi team manager, Vincent Voss, because his car number 2 is doing a very good job indeed. The Audi team manager must be pretty happy about the way his car's going. Vincent's in the pits with Haley.
Vincent, Laurens is storming his way through the field, but still a long way to go.
Yeah, it's always the same thing. I mean, we are only at half part of the race, and we still have a lot of work to do. And, well, at the moment, the driver are doing an incredible job.
Thank you.
So Vincent Voss former racer himself, as well as the team manager, along with Pierre Dieudonné at the Belgian Audi Club, Team WRT these days, looking at a very impressive effort this by Laurens Vanthoor. Christopher Haase in the sister car is fourth, trying to close, and he is closing on Greg Franchi, but the lead battle is coming alive. And there, look behind, you can see the McLaren, which is now Julian Draper, launching itself up the inside of Roger Grauvels in the BMW, and also nipping by there is the much delayed McLaren from earlier on, Nico Verdonk at the wheel of it, the car that was started by Edouard Mondron and Jack Clark, the British driver, to bring it home. But up front then, we've still got these little battles developing, and the lead gap at the start of the lap was 1.5 seconds. In sector 1 it had come down, in sector 2 it had gone up. So Bas Leijnders hanging on to the advantage, such as it is. Laurens Vanthoor with, if you like, 20 minutes of his stint to go, if they're going to pick the car round about the hour mark. And it's going to be then Edward Sandstrom, who was very impressive at Monza, you might recall. He did the middle stint there. He will take it over to the end. So Sandstrom versus Maxime Martin between these two cars for the last stint. For now, though, it's Bas Leijnders ahead of Laurens Vanthoor, and the gap's 1.5 seconds as they work their way now up towards Maggots once again. Sector by sector, lap by lap, it's looking stronger for Audi against BMW, isn't it? And this Audi, again, looking like a completely different car in the second stint compared to the first. Right up there now, very much in contention. Onto the hanger straight they come, and Laurens Vanthoor then flashes the headlights just to say to the leader, I'm here, I'm closing, and I'm going to give you a very hard time in a short while. Laurens Vanthoor adapted very quickly from single-seaters to GT cars, not just in this championship, but also winning races in the GT1 World Championship this year, and he's brought the gap down again in that first sector by 0.6 seconds. Through club corner, BMW versus Audi. And Greg Franchi, who is in third place, is being reeled in fact has now been caught by Christopher Haase. There's going to be a change for third before much longer, because the second of the Audis right on the tail now, the Vita 4.1 BMW. Could well be on this lap indeed that the pace changes. We'll keep an eye for that when the cars cross the timing line at the end of this lap. We're on lap 41, and it is still Bas Leijnders leading the way. He's going to try and hang on in there until we get to the next round of pit stops. But right on his tail is Laurens Vanthoor. There's Vincent Vos, we've heard from him. And whoops, a big slide from Vanthoor coming into village. That cost him a couple of cars' length, so some of that work will have to be done all over again as he hustles on now through the loop, back on the power through Aintree. The BMW snaking a little bit. Accelerates onto Wellington Straight now. So BMW leading the way, Audi second. Bas Leijnders versus Laurens Vanthoor. As they accelerate down towards Brooklands, they both just moved to that wetter part of the road. These are the cars that you might recall finished first and second at Monza. They're battling first and second now, but with an hour and 18 minutes still to go. There's a lot yet that can pan out of this race. That nose to tail coming now from Luffield into Woodcote. Bas Leijnders is under huge pressure. He's applied pressure. Pierre Dieudonné there from the Belgian Audi Club watching what's going on. Pierre himself a very successful and experienced GT and touring car endurance racer. He watches Laurens Vanthoor flash past the pits, and the gap between the top two cars is 0.391 seconds. That's all. Bas Leijnders then leads the way in the BMW. Second place Audi of Laurens Vanthoor, but for how much longer? Because the two of them are together going up towards Maggots. Is this the lap on which we get another lead change? Bas Leijnders, having applied pressure to Greg Franchi, is now feeling the pressure being applied on him by Laurens Vanthoor. Christopher Haase has got up to third, then he's taken that place from Greg Franchi. So we've had the change for third, but it's a fascinating lead battle this as the cars work their way now onto Hanger Straight, and there are more back markers up the road ahead. Vanthoor trying to work out if he can dive up the inside. He has a look. Is the Audi going to be able to go through? Yes, they're wheel to wheel into the corner on the inside line. Laurens Vanthoor breaks as late as he can, scrabbles up the inside of Bas Leijnders, who braves it out on the outside. They lean on each other, they touch. The BMW I thought was going to get tagged sideways, but it bounces off the Audi. Bas Leijnders loses the lead. The two of them trying to go side by side at Stowe in treacherous conditions. Laurens Vanthoor then comes through to take the lead. So both Audis gaining ground within a couple of laps of each other. So Vanthoor goes past at Stowe corner to take the lead. A bit of contact between the two, but nothing major. So the new order, number 2 Audi leads number 3 BMW, then number 1 Audi up into third place, Christopher Haase. And there he is, and look at the way already that he's pulled away from Greg Franchi. The BMW just not going as strongly in this second stint. Duncan Tappy is 5th. Now can Tappy catch Greg Franchi? There's a big gap between them, but Duncan is certainly lapping faster. Christopher Haase, third place, lapping in the 224s. Comes up now towards Village. He might be able to do something about Bas Linders before the end of his stint, actually, as the cars now thread their way up through the loop and then onto Aintree. So it's Audi, BMW in the top four. There's Maxime Martin, who is fully aware of the task ahead of him now. He's got to not just win the race, he's got to get the car back into the lead and then win the race, if that is at all possible. The number 2 Audi will be given over to Edward Sandstrom, and number 1 to Stefan Ortelli. So we're going to end up with some real star drivers in the top 3 cars. I'm saying they're not stars at the moment, but the quality of the entry is just so high in the Blancpain Endurance Series. And then, of course, Adam Carroll, who is new to not just GT racing, but endurance racing as well. Normally, it's his own car for the entire race, not something that 2 different drivers have had a go at driving. He's going to take over from Greg Franchi at the next round of pit stops. Now let's have a look at a replay here of the leading Audi and something flying off the back of it. A little bit of loose bodywork, and then eventually it gives up the unequal struggle, flaps away. Is that going to have affected the aero at all on that lead car? Let's try and have a look whether it's significant. Don't think it's hugely so, although the cars that team uses are the new Audis, the LMS Ultra, which outwardly look the same as last year's car, but they're slightly tweaked in terms of the aero package and just 1 or 2 revisions elsewhere. So let's just keep an eye to that car. I don't, as I say, think it will have done anything major to affect the pace of it. Or a big slide there at Stowe for Laurens Vanthoor, really hustling on as he tries to build up the race lead, and build up a lead he is. He's 4 tenths quicker than Bas Linders in the first sector alone, but then he gets caught up in traffic once again. Ahead of him is the number 42 Ferrari. He's going to try and find a way past the Emmett O'Brien, Kevin Despanes, Arnaud Santamato Ferrari. It's the French Clio racer Kevin Despanes at the moment behind the wheel. To the inside there goes the Audi, and certainly the BMW in second place is falling back. How are we getting on for third? Christopher Haase trying to work his way through traffic. Von Ryan McLaren there that needed lapping. Job done. And Christopher Haase in the first sector, a little bit delayed, I think, by being in slower cars. He's lapping in the 224s. He's certainly catching Bas Linders. He is certainly catching Bas Linders. So second to third is coming down, and Bas Linders in traffic now is therefore going to be delayed. Leader flashes through on the inside of number 52 Ferrari. Gets past the AF Corsa car. Now Maxime Martin said knows exactly what the task is ahead of him. He will do the last stint in there, the second placed BMW. Can he get the lead back when he takes over from Bas Linders? He, to answer the question, is with Haley.
Max, will you be able to get the lead back?
Not the lead for the moment. We are second. It looks like we are struggling a little bit with the car, so I hope it will be okay for the last stint. It's long, still 1 hour 13 minutes, so we'll see.
Thank you.
But why are they struggling with the car? Is that something they can change at the next pit stop, or is it just something that they're going to have to live with to the end of the race? Either way, Bas Linders has just upped his pace a little bit. In fact, he's on a 224, so some of the pace was being lost in traffic. But even so, we've seen how quickly Laurens Vanthoor has been going to catch him and pass him. There's the third place car of Christopher Haase, and Greg Franchi behind, nearly 5 seconds adrift now in 5th place, leading his class. Duncan Tappy 6th, Jeffrey Van Hooydonk's BMW, and Peter Cox 7th in the Lamborghini. 8th at the moment, Bonaccini's Ferrari. 9th, Jan Mardenborough, and in 10th, Simon Knapp. The Ecurie Cost BMW being warned about respecting the track limits, as Christopher Haase, who, inch perfect, threads his way out of Beckett's now onto the Hanger Straight for the 44th time, goes after the race leaders, heads down towards Stoke Corner once again. He's going after the race leaders, but he's also got a huge amount of traffic to work his way through on this lap, and the Belgian Audi Club getting ready for the next round of pit stops. Making sure that the Michelin tyres are in the right places, ready to be flung onto the car. Making sure that they're the right set, marked for each of the 2 cars. So as the race leader, Laurens Vanthoor, works lap number 44, battles further down the order, the surviving United Autosports McLaren there, with Mark Patterson at the wheel, coming into the stadium. And 51 Ferrari, just worked away past, is the car which is being driven by Daniel Brown, Giuseppe Ciro and Gaetano Ardagna. Dan Brown at the wheel of it at the moment. big problems on the last lap of the race at Monza when the car suddenly slowed, having been going very, very well indeed. The gearbox broke on the last lap of the race, so they're hoping for better things here. 72 Ferrari, which is the Claude Gosselin, Marc Rostin, Gino Forgione car. Again, in the Pro-Am Cup. Marc Rostin new to Blancpain this weekend. He did the first stint in that car. Forgione driving it at the moment. Claude Gosselin, experienced GT and prototype racer, will do the last stint. We're on board with Peter Cox. He's in traffic there behind the Black Falcon Racing Mercedes car number 18 that Brett Curtis is currently driving in 23rd place. Mike Parisi, former Formula Renault champion, driving the last stint, replacing Sean Edwards this weekend. Sean, who is busy in Germany, having been racing today and winning today in the Carrera Cup Deutschland. Right, at the Belgian Audi Club Team WRT, things are starting to shape up for the next round of pit stops. An hour and 10 minutes of the race remains, and we're in for a fascinating finish here, aren't we? It's been a fascinating race so far, but with an hour and 10 minutes still to go, and 4 potential winners, 2 Audis, 2 BMWs, things are looking good. That's 23, which I think was delayed a little bit there. Mark Patterson's car, heading down Hanger Straight now. That's the one that Mark Blundell will take over for the last stint. 32nd the car classified at the moment. So 70 minutes remain here at Silverstone, this second round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. And once again, the team's having to cope with pretty foul conditions, but relatively few people have come a cropper. Good little Ferrari fight here going on down through Brooklands. Absolutely wheel-to-wheel look. The Sofrev car number 20 with Ludovic Badet at the wheel is up now into 12th place, and right behind is Michael Lyons, the British driver, 59, flinging the car there out of Luffield into Woodcote. Great fight this, 12th and 13th places. Ludovic Badet, very, very quick French single-seater racer. Michael Lyons really excels in historics, but in recent years has come into modern GT racing and shines in these sorts of cars as well. It's definitely the area of modern racing he needs to concentrate on. He did have a go in Formula Renault UK for a couple of seasons, but that wasn't really him. But GT cars seem to suit Michael, and he goes well. He's right on the back of Ludovic Badet now, heading through the Beckett's S's, and one of the Jones brothers spins. That's Godfrey Jones behind the wheel of the Mercedes. Off the road in avoidance goes Badet. Godfrey Jones facing the wrong way, and the Mercedes rejoins. The Beckett's S's, not the place you want to have a spin. Godfrey Jones gets going again, and with no harm done, has lost a bit of time, but the Mercedes undamaged, thankfully, back into the race. The Jones brothers have 2 of these cars. This one for the Blancpain Series, an identical car that runs in the British GT Championship, in which they're always front runners and former champions. Michael Lyons then through Stowe Corner, and this a replay of all the fun and games that happened ahead of them coming into Beckett's. Godfrey Jones just ran deep into the first part, lost the back of the car, it spun, and Ludovic Badet takes evasive action, thinking, I'm not sure where that Mercedes is going to end up, I'll go this way, and he gets out of the way of the car. Into the pits has come Anthony Kumpert, incidentally, and also in 71, Stefano Gattuso has made a very, very short stint in the Kessel racing car, and down the pit lane comes number 1 then. Christopher Hasse will give way early, I think I'm right in saying, to Stefano Ortelli. Not the longest of stints for Christopher Hasse, but Stefano Ortelli, hugely experienced driver, ex-Le Mans winner, he will take over. The little Frenchman rushes around the side of the car. I still think this is looking pretty good. Both the Audis are looking strong at the moment. Greg Franchi is in as well to give way to Adam Carroll. The rip-off windscreen there, taken away. So this is lap 45, and in comes number 1 and number 66. In other words, Stefano Ortelli takes over and Adam Carroll takes over in 1 and 66, Audi and BMW respectively. That's going to help Duncan Tappy up the order for the moment, but until he brings the car into the pit lane, and the door in a moment will close. Stefano Ortelli behind the wheel, and this looks unlike Monza in the equivalent pit stop, trouble-free. Refueling is done, the tyre change part of the pit stop now takes place. So you've got Laurens Vanthoor still leading Baz Linders by 4.5 seconds. And then Stefano Ortelli versus Adam Carroll, who has never done an endurance race, never done a GT race, never raced this car before. Let's see how he gets on. Down the pit lane goes Stefano Ortelli then. And this Ferrari fight between Ludovic Badet and Michael Lyons continues, and it's still the French driver ahead of the Brit as they go round Copse Corner. 11th and 12th they were. They may have gained a little bit temporarily because of this next round of pit stops starting to unwind. Either way, they're still nose to tail, and Michael Lyons hasn't yet found a way past the French driver as they come now through the Beckett's S's, and once more they're heading towards the Hanger Straight. Now 66 BMW just left the pit lane, so Adam Carroll at the wheel of the car sets off in pursuit of Stefano Ortelli. really is going to be fascinating to see how Adam adapts to this, because he went so well in qualifying. Right, we've had therefore car number 1 in, and number 2 is expected shortly, and there it is. That's the leading car. So Laurens Vanthoor turning his way through Luffield as he pit this time. Accelerates his way through Woodcote Corner. He's going to do at least one more lap before he brings the car in for Edward Sandstrom. So through goes Laurens Vanthoor, whose father Raphael is in this race as well, and we've got a car there with the door peeling open, which is going to necessitate a pit stop to get that sorted out. Is that the 13? It is Mercedes. Carl Wendlinger has just taken it over. It's 16th place, but it's got a flapping door, as you can see, and it's on the driver's side, so Carl Wendlinger is going to have to come back in, I think, and have that attended to. So Wendlinger is bound for the pit lane, and that's going to really put that car out of contention, because it'll be an extra pit stop on top of everything else that you've got to do under the regulations, the 2 mandatory stops, plus this. It's going to be a big handicap. It just looks as though it's not been slammed shut properly. So let's see, there's Wendlinger coming through the loop up towards Aintree. Well, it was closed all right there, so has he rattled it over the curbs to do that, or has the catch just broken? Either way, up it flaps, and a pit stop and lots of gaffer tape is required to put the door back down again before the Mercedes can rejoin the race. More pit stops shaking out. Santi Locker brought the Audi in there, you can see. So we've got at the moment number 2 Laurens Vanthoor in the lead of the race from Bas Linders, from Duncan Tappy, and Stefan Ortelli 8th at the moment. That's where he is rejoined after the stops, and Adam Carroll 9th after the pit stops. We're into the last stint for those cars now, and there you can see the race leading Audi number 2 turning through the right-left sequence of Abbey and Farm. Grégoire de Mustier will take over from Duncan Tappy in the 3rd place car, but Edward Sandstrom will take over number 2 Audi very shortly. And that's going to be another rapid car as well. So how's this going to pace out? Is it going to be a BMW win? Is it going to be a McLaren win? Can Grégoire de Mustier pull something out of the bag for ART Grand Prix? It's a possibility. And what about Maxime Martin when he gets behind the wheel of the Marc VDS racing car? As he was saying to Haley, see what he can do. But the gap is now 5 seconds. Not a massive gap, but Maxime Martin versus Edward Sandstrom. I just think possibly Maxime might be the quicker of the 2 there, but time will tell. Peter Cox, in the meantime, in the Lamborghini, currently running in 5th place as he works his way down to the end of Vale. Ahead on the road, you've got Bonaccini in 57 Ferrari, so that puts the Ferrari up into 5th indeed now. Peter Cox drops back to 6th, and Mark Hayek to take that car over. Bonaccini having taken over from Petrobelli. Eugenio Amos will do the 3rd stint. There is Peter Cox. So, yeah, surprisingly for Peter, he's lost a little bit of pace over the last couple of laps, and now he's lost a place on top of that as well. You're riding with him. Still, that wiper's not doing very much, is it? Mark Hayek to take the car over. Conditions improving a bit here. Stop raining. Quite similar to Monza, isn't it? Starts wet, dries a bit, but still the road very slippery, as the leading cars are on lap number 48. And 37 BMW there, which is Simon Knapp working its way through the new part of Silverstone Village and the Loop, and Marc VDS Racing get ready now for a pit stop, because there Maxime Martin is ready to take over. Winner at Monza, winner here last year, winner at Manicourt last year, this team. And Maxime, whose father Jean-Michel Martin, hugely experienced and successful Belgian racer in touring cars mainly, multiple winner of the Spa 24 Hours. Comes from good racing stock. Well, he was very impressive in the last stint at Monza. He's going to have to be very impressive here as well, because the car has to first of all catch and then get past the number 2 race leading Audi. The sister car in the Marc VDS Racing team retired a long time ago, but Mike Hesemann's fastest lap of the race from lap 11 still stands. Nobody has gone quicker than that, despite the road now being a bit drier. So past the wing, the new pits at Silverstone, goes the 2nd place BMW, which on this lap has again lost out in the 1st sector. So the gap 5.3 seconds approaching this next round of pit stops. Team's ready in the pit lane. There you can see the tyres being brought out at Marc VDS Racing. And the drivers then on lap 48, in some cases, will continue for a little longer. In other cases, coming towards the end of their stints. And there you can see the number 3 BMW onto Wellington Straight once again. Bas Linders, so he lost out in the 1st sector of this lap, and now he's got back markers ahead of him. The 2nd sector may be a touch slower as well as he comes, breaks the beam. Well, actually in the middle sector he has caught slightly the leading car, so Vanthoor gets caught up in traffic as well, and there's a slight gain for Bas Linders this time. Number 30 Audi heading for the pit lane, and is the leader in this time? I think it is. It looked as though in the background we were going to have the number 2 car down the pit road, so we'll see in a moment when it breaks the timing beam whether it does it on the track or in the pit lane. I'm pretty sure it's in the pits. Down the pit lane comes the race leader, so at the end of lap 48, leader in, there's car 1. Now Stefano Ortelli at the wheel, who'll have this opportunity to try and gain some ground. So there is number 3 and there is number 2, the 2 pits next door to each other, so they are both in. And Maxime Martin takes over in the number 2 Audi. It's going to be Edward Sandstrom, and a proper battle not just on the track but between the pit crews. The Audi should rejoin ahead because it had a 5-second advantage early on, but then that last lap, that in lap, was a really slow one in the traffic, really delayed, because from 5.3 seconds it had come down to 1.4 on the in lap in traffic, so they came in almost nose to tail, those 2 cars, in the end, even though there had been a gap between them. And while they're cycling through the pit stops, number 1 Audi is charging on, so it's building up here. You've got a car on the track catching, the 2 in the pits, and there's a race going on between the 2 pit crews anyway here to see who can get which car out ahead. The Audi came in ahead on the way in. Is it going to be that way on the way out? BMW drops down, it's going to get the lead on the pit stops, isn't it? Yes! Mark VDS Racing takes over the race lead on the pit stops. The delighted mechanics start to celebrate. Edward Sandstrom blasts down the pit lane. So number 3, BMW, gets ahead on the pit stops. And when they rejoin, we'll see exactly how close number 1, Stefano Ortelli, is going to be relative to the 2 cars that we've just seen rejoining the race. So Mark VDS Racing, very, very pleased about that. It was a good in-lap for them. It was a bad in-lap because of traffic for Laurens Vanthoor, and that has contributed to costing them the lead. We've got a spinning Porsche, which looks like the ARC Bratislava car that was started by Miro Konopka, Stefano Crotti at the wheel of that rotating yellow Porsche in the middle stint. And it has now gone to Deno Milashko for the last stint of the car. In fact, it was, yes, Milashko that's rotated. So, as we've got the new race leader, BMW, very, very happy Bas Linders. Well, he may have got the lead, he then lost the lead, but the pit crew, as well as Bas, working well together. Good in-lap for the car, great pit work. And there is the BMW then, coming into Stowe Corner. Loads of traffic ahead. Now, how close behind is the Audi? Where is the Audi? There is the Audi. That's quite a big gap that's opened up, because bearing in mind it was a different order when they came in. Rather looks like Maxime Martin has been able to get on the money on his outlap quicker than Edward Sandstrom has in the second placed car. There it is. So through club, Edward Sandstrom just being, it seems, a bit more cautious here than is Maxime Martin, but Martin straight away trying to get on with the job and work his way through this galaxy of cars up the road ahead that are busy battling amongst themselves. Maxime Martin needing to be fairly cautious in the traffic. We've got 58 minutes to go now, and he leads the way. So some of the work for the lead has been done in the pit stops, but can he hang on in there, or can the Audis fight back? Stefano Ortelli lapping in the 223s at the moment. We'll see how that stacks up against the race leaders at the end of this next lap. There is Maxime Martin working his way onto Wellington Straight. He's still got these back markers to work away past. Duncan Tapie has just pitted to give way to Gregoire de Musnier in the McLaren that did lead again on the pit stops, but leads its class significantly. Maxime Martin down at Brooklands, and having been a bit more committed to getting past the traffic when he started this outlap, I think now he's being a little bit more careful, realising just how many cars there are up the road, and it's not going to be easy to get past them, so just pick his moment would seem to be the best option here. Some of those cars may even bail for the pit lane and get out of his way. Through they go. So Maxime Martin there, having taken over the BMW from Bas Linders. Let's hear from Bas in the pits with Haley now.
Tremendous time out on track, Bas, and another great pit stop.
Yeah, the pit stop of the guys was really amazing. I think we were like 3-4 seconds quicker than the WRT guys. We train a lot. I mean, the guys work very well together. So I think, again, a good show of teamwork.
Did you have an issue with the car at all?
No, no issue. I pushed hard from the beginning, so I was able to catch up the other guys in front. And then maybe in the middle, I pushed maybe a little bit too hard when I was behind the Vita for one car, was in the lead. I pushed very hard. I wanted to get past as soon as possible. I think I heated the tire a little bit too much. So after that, I had difficulty a little bit with the rear. So the Audi came back, but I could minimize the loss, because even in my in-lap, I saw that he was slowing down a little bit. I was scoring guys coming in as well, so I pushed like hell. I think I gained another 2.5-3 seconds coming in, so really good.
Thank you.
Goes to show, doesn't it, that just one lap like that, an in-lap, can make all the difference. It also shows how a driver needs to be aware of not only his own race but other people's. Conscious Battleliners was then that Laurens Vanthoor was caught up in traffic and going slowly, so he pushes even harder, brings down the gap, and then that, coupled with some great pit work, brings the car out in the lead of the race. So very, very good indeed, the combined efforts of drivers and team, and of course the BMW Z4 once again proving just what a good car it is in this kind of racing. Now looking at lap time, Stefan Ortelli on his last lap did a 2:23. Only this time will we see a flying lap out of Maxime Martin and Edward Sandstrom. But certainly Ortelli, and there he is, he's absolutely charging on, closing up on his teammate, the number 2 Audi. Sandstrom looked good at Monza, but he's certainly dropped pace, or dropped time away from the leading BMW on this lap. Now, we've got, of course, more cars to take their next pit stop, so the order continues to jumble. The best of the 2 stoppers is indeed number 3, Maxime Martin. 55 minutes of the race to go. The cars turning their way up now through the stadium. There you can see number 2, Edward Sandstrom. Jeffrey Van Hooydonk had inherited the lead. He has now pitted, so wait for Maxime Martin to come across the timing line, and we'll see what the lap is out of that car. When it goes through, it's a 2:21, and Edward Sandstrom should be through shortly. He is, he does a 2:22, so he's slower, and therefore the gap's widening. And Stefan Ortelli goes by, and he's slower than the pair, in fact. So he possibly can put some of this down to traffic, but at the moment Stefan Ortelli is not getting quite as quick as he needs to be in order to have a go either with his teammate or do anything about Maxime Martin. So the BMW lapping quicker than the 2 Audis. And there is 57, which is Alessandro Bonaccini, who has now taken over the lead on the pit stops of the Pro-Am class and in fact of the race overall. So it'll drop down again when the car pits for the second time, but for now it's a class leading car and it's the race leading car. 57 Ferrari then threading its way through Club Corner. Number 12, Gregoire de Moustier has taken back the ART Grand Prix McLaren. There's 24 Lamborghini, Peter Cox, second in the race and second in the class. Mark Hayek, there he is to take over on the next round of pit stops. It's not that far away for the Lamborghini. And then third in that class on the pit stops now, 37, Simon Knapp in the DB Motorsport BMW Z4. Number 20, still Ludovic Badet, fourth in the class. I mean, worked his way up from Patrice Guelard's troubled first stint when the car went off on the first lap of the race. Even behind the safety car it stopped and then had to play catch-up again. So that's fought back very well in the combined hands of Patrice and Ludovic. But then you've got Jean-Luc Bobelic to do the last stint, and Jean-Luc is not as quick as the other 2. That might be a car that's therefore going to fall back down the order. The Nissan going strongly at the moment, number 35, Chris Ward, who is the senior instructor at the Silverstone Race School. If anybody knows Silverstone, Chris Ward is the man. That's currently in 12th place overall, 7th in class. You're looking at the Pro-Am Cup standings at the moment on screen. You're looking at Peter Cox, still working hard behind the wheel of the 24 Blancpain Reiter Lamborghini. Marvellous sounding car, that, the symphonic sounding Lamborghini heading through Woodcote Corner over the timing line, but up front, Alessandro Bonaccini lapping 4/10 quicker. Peter Cox not for the moment being able to do anything at all about the leading car. Leading car on track, leading car in class. But of course, when these 2 pit, they'll find their cars rejoining a little bit further down within the classification. There's the Lamborghini through Maggots up towards Beckett's. Peter Cox hustling on as best he can. Now, how are we doing between the race leaders? Because as the BMW Audi fight continues, Maxime Martin is lapping quicker than Sandstrom, who last time lapped quicker than Ortelli, so the gaps are widening across the top 3. Stefan Ortelli not for the moment being able to do anything about those ahead of him. Is that going to be a pattern for the next 52 minutes, or is it traffic that's getting in the way for the French driver? Stefan Ortelli has been racing at Silverstone for decades. He's come here in just about every type of GT category going, and hugely experienced. Came from single-seater racing into sports cars many, many years ago, but it's been in this that he's made his name. And the Formula Le Mans winner in the number 1 Audi, Peter Cox, meanwhile, he sort of gets sideways at Stowe Corner, and he's coming through Club now, doing the best he can. But this Lamborghini, as his stint wears on, he's looking more and more of a handful. Maybe he's done what Battleliners did and working the tyres a bit too hard early in the stint. That car, I know it's a greasy road, but it's becoming more and more of a handful. Peter Cox does not look quite as at ease behind the wheel of it now, as in comes Mark Patterson to give way to Mark Blundell. That's not a healthy looking McLaren, I fear, because there's smoke and steam coming out of the back of it. Let's see what can be done about that in the pit stops, if anything. So that car down pit road. And we're currently on to lap number 52 of the race. Number 49 Ferrari, which is the Blancpain Malagol car in the Pro-Am Cup. You saw go through, and that's quite a long way down the order at the moment. In fact, in 38th place, Jean-Marc Bachelier at the wheel of the car. On board with Peter Cox. Is he getting ready for a pit stop? Down towards the end of the straight, turns the car in. So, still running second is the Lamborghini. And more pit crews get ready. There's Peter Cox coming through the stadium. Remember, that car also glanced off the Anthony Kumpen Mercedes early in his stint, and he comes in this time, yes, so in he comes, and the team manager of Stefan Ortelli's Audi is being summoned to the race director immediately. I think there's another story about to emerge here about number 1 Audi, the team manager of car 1 being sent to the race director. So Stefan tries to get onto terms with the leaders. Maybe something else is going to come into the into the story here. Out of the car gets Peter Cox, into 24 Lamborghini gets Mark Hayek, threads his way in. Peter Cox's work is done. Mark Hayek, with his very distinctive crash helmet, will bring the car home. And number 1 is Stefan Ortelli being warned on the timing screen about the track limits. So certainly pushing, maybe pushing too hard as far as the race director is concerned. Repeated transgression earns you a drive-through. That's the last thing that team needs. Peter Cox just advising Mark Hayek as to where he can push and how it's slippery in different places. Mark Hayek takes on board the information. New tyres are taken by the Lamborghini. And sponsored car in a few moments then should be good to go. The Dutchman has done, and number 24 drops off the jacks. The Swiss driver Mark Hayek fires it up. Down the pit lane it goes, so it will have lost places, but Mark Hayek back into the groove. And a man that started off in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, then went into German GT racing. He's had a win in British GT at Spa, and has raced in the German GT Championship. He's done a lot of miles in these cars. So Mark Hayek, now a very, very quick driver in the Pro-Am Cup, very successful driver. He certainly benefited from having Peter Cox with him, not just because Peter is quick, but because Peter can pass on many, many years of experience, and that has all helped to make Mark Hayek an even better driver. So the car rejoins the race. And we've got 49 minutes, give or take, of the race remaining. Maxime Martin is getting faster and faster. The Audis are getting slower and slower. Martin has done a 2:20, Sandstrom a 2:24, and Ortelli a 2:25. The gap is widening between them. Now, what about Adam Carroll? Last time through, he did a 2:28. So number 66 BMW is falling away as well, going into the last stint. Can anything change around within that order? Davide Rigon is now in the 71 Ferrari that we saw go strongly early on in the race in the hands of Daniel Zampieri. So that could be another one, I think, that creeps back into the picture. As soon as the next round of pit stops are cycled through, we'll have a look at the classification. There's Adam Carroll then in his first ever GT race in the Vita 4-1 BMW, just ahead on track of number 36, which is now Jeroen Den Boer, who knows these cars much, much better. And Den Boer is about to go past him here and breezes by on the inside, going out to Abbey. So 36 goes through, picks up 8th place on the road. Jeroen Den Boer goes past, and there's nothing seemingly there that Adam Carroll can do to fight back. So Adam, who's now a good 3 or 4 laps, if not more, into his stint, turns his way up towards Village and loses out there as well. 52 Ferrari goes through. It's a lap down, that car, but even so, Adam not being able to repel him. So is he struggling with that BMW? As I say, it's the first time Adam has raced a GT car, but he drove it so well yesterday. Bit of a puzzle, this. There's the race leader then, the best of the 2 stoppers, Maxime Martin. He's in the traffic, of course, but he's coming now onto Hanger Straight. And the leading car heads down towards Stowe Corner. So as he comes into the right-hander, the next one of significance behind is Edward Sandstrom, who is still falling away. So Maxime Martin still looking strong. 57 leads on track, but as I've been saying, that's got a pit stop to make. It's being caught anyway, so it's going to lose the lead on pace, but because it's got to make another pit stop, it's in a false lead for the moment, because Bonaccini has yet to bring the car in for its second mandatory pit stop. He's going a long way, in fairness, Bonaccini, for this middle stint that he's doing, but it's Maxime Martin then, the best of the 2 stoppers. It's the car that has the notional lead for the moment, but yet to pit. Bonaccini turning his way up through Farm. Eugenio Amos will take the car over, and they're at Vita 4-1. Amos is getting himself ready to go. Notice the Lamborghini logo on Eugenio Amos's crash helmet, for he is a Lamborghini salesman during the week. Alessandro Bonaccini then, for the moment, as he slides the car with tyres that are probably well past their best now, out of the loop, onto Wellington Straight, leads the Pro-Am class as well as the race, but where he'll drop down to after the next round of stops is the significant thing. So Maxime Martin is, at the moment, the only driver being able to do lap times as quick as he is in the 221s. And the Vita 4-1 team get ready. It's really the Pro-Am Cup that is of interest to them. A good overall result will certainly be good for pride, but it's the Pro-Am Cup and the points for it that they're interested in. Over the timing line comes Bonaccini, another lap to be completed, so Eugenio Amos, I think, will get a turn in this car eventually, but he's not going to get a huge amount of time in it, is he? Giacomo Petrobelli, remember, drove this car very, very effectively early on, and Eugenio Amos occupies himself by playing to the camera while his car drives around. A set of tyres being brought out in the background, so that's a bit more optimistic that he might get something to drive in a minute, because the car, I think, may be in at the end of this next lap, but he may be off the road indeed there. Big slide and a bit of dirt being kicked up going through Beckett by Bonaccini. You can see how much faster Maxime Martin is, because he's hunting him down now, the gap coming down and down. As I say, Martin is the real race leader here because he's done the 2 pit stops, but as he comes onto Hangler Straight, he's going to zap past the Ferrari pretty shortly anyway, especially if Bonaccini keeps doing things like that. I think the tyres are well past their best. You saw him slide a lap ago up at the loop, and he's still having a car that doesn't want to handle so well now. Number 70 BMW going through Stowe rather slowly. That was started by Nick Katzberg, and he went really well in that car. Now it has fallen down the order. It's another of the Pro-Am Cup cars, and it is the Dutch driver Roger Grauvels at the wheel of it. Very much the Am against the Nick Katzberg Pro, Roger Grauvels. So with 44 minutes to go, is this going to be an easy stint for Maxime Martin? When Haley spoke to him, they were looking at a car in second place, some way back from an Audi. Now they're looking at a lead and pulling away from the chasing Audis. He's got to get past Grauvels' BMW there, which he will do. There's another lap on number 70, the Race Art car, going up now to Village. And Bonaccini, the notional race leader, is soon to watch the BMW fly past him. Maxime Martin's a quicker driver and he's on fresher tyres, so the BMW, which really goes well at this circuit, remember it was the winning car from last year, not this exact model, because the chassis that was run by Marc VDS last year to victory here is the one being used by Acuria Cos, new cars for Marc VDS Racing for 2012, but I think it's going to be the same result looking at this evidence. The Marc VDS Racing team, admittedly one car, retiring early in the race with the fuel pressure problems. Mike Heserman's parking the car, but the number 3 machine looking so strong now, building its lead all the while. Maxime Martin then comes out of Luffield into the pit lane. This time comes Bonaccini to give away to Eugenio Amos. So the real question is where 57 is going to rejoin relative to the class opposition. Now Ludovic Badet, number 20, will take over the lead of the Pro-Am Cup, but he's yet to pit stop as well to put the slower Jean-Luc Bobelic into the car. So the real question for the Vita 4-1 team is where this car rejoins relative to number 24 Marc Hayek, who in fact is ahead now of Grégoire de Moustier. So because of Peter Kopp's very good stint staying out to be in the car against de Moustier and do quicker lap times, Peter Kopp's has managed to bring Marc Hayek and his Lamborghini very much into contention for Pro-Am Cup honours now. So let's just see where the Ferrari will rejoin. Driver change, Amos gets in. Tyres will be changed, fuel will go in, and with the refuelling done, the tyre change part of the pit stop gets underway. Number 20 Ludovic Badet comes in as well, in fact, so the car that would have inherited the class lead from the Ferrari you're looking at has also come down the pit road, and we've got 42 minutes of the second round of the Blancpain Endurance Series from Silverstone still to run. And it is Maxime Martin, number 3 BMW, who leads the way from Edward Sandstrom by 18.8 seconds now. There is Marc Hayek in number 24 Lamborghini, who is about to gain places, look, as they come over the line, because you've got him passing this car in the pit lane, one on the track, one in the pits. Away now goes Eugenio Amos. He drops back behind the Ferrari, So that's going to be a change for the lead of the class, isn't it, in real terms? Mark Hayek takes over the lead of the Pro-Am Cup class now. Can Eugenio Amos fight back? And the slippery surface flag out on the run up towards Beckett's. Is that because of mud on the road more than oil? Possibly, because we've seen cars going wide there. There's Mark Hayek. Behind him is Adam Carroll in the Vita 4-1 BMW that's struggling a little bit in this second half of the race, really. Greg Franchi led pretty much up to the halfway mark, then he dropped back, and Adam Carroll surprising us by not being able to fight back either. 33, the race director wants to see the team manager of the Pro GT Porsche. It's not one of the front runners, so we'll wait and see what pans out there. Eugenio Amos on his outlap, looking terribly cautious coming out of Beckett's. He needs to be on the money a bit more rapidly than that, doesn't he? So Amos, having taken over from Bonaccini, accelerates now onto the Hangar Straight. There is Alessandro Bonaccini, helmet off, happy with his work, but Eugenio Amos needs to go a little bit quicker. There is gravel on the road at turn 10, we're being told by the race officials. So that will also just affect things for the drivers. There's that slippery surface flag being shown once more to warn people. Turn 10 is not Beckett's, but that's where the flag is being shown, the approach to that part of the circuit. Maxime Martin comes through Beckett's. His last lap was in the 2:22s. And he's now leading Edward Sandstrom by, get this, 24 seconds. Sandstrom is doing laps in the 2:27s. It's a much, much quicker BMW, or a much, much slower Audi, depending on your point of view. But the gap is widening all the time, and Martin is doing much better lap times than anybody, not just, to be fair, the Audis, but everybody else. Martin is just absolutely flying here. He's 5 seconds quicker than number 2, and he is currently 3 seconds a lap quicker than number 1 Stefano Ortelli. So at the moment everything seems to be going the BMW's way. Is there a sting in the tail here for this car? Is everything too good for Marc VDS Racing? Can this winning streak in the Blancpain Endurance Series continue for as long as it has? 2 wins last year, potentially 2 this, because it won at Monza. It's leading here at Silverstone with now 40 minutes remaining. Up toward Abbey goes Maxime Martin. He's pulling away sector by sector. And what about Stefano Ortelli versus Edward Sandstrom? It's 6.6 seconds between the 2 Audis. Stefano Ortelli last time a bit quicker than Sandstrom, who did look good at Monza, but just not, and they're similar conditions, being able to go quickly enough here. Let's hear from Alessandro Bonaccini, though, because he's just done his work in 57 Ferrari, and he's in the pit lane now with Haley.
Alessandro, you seem to be in the car for an extremely long time. Was that planned before you went out?
Just before we go for my stint, we planned that Petrobelli has very many good laps, and so if I will do the same time, I will stay in the car more. So my teammates that are joking to me. For this matter, we can get a little bit of advantage to the car of Peter Cox, and then we have to try to get the P2 until the end. Sorry for my English. I'm a little bit tired.
Perfect, thank you.
Complimenti Alessandro, great drive. His English ain't too bad either, is it? So staying in the car, maximising the stint that he does, and that car is still in contention within the class. Eugenio Amos, who's new to Ferraris this year, mainly has raced Lamborghinis in the past. We'll see how he shapes up then against Mark Hayek now. And the Porsche I mentioned a little while ago, the Pro GT car 33 of David Touchemont, Eric Dermont, Antoine Leclerc, is being given a drive-through penalty. Now there you can see the comparison of the lap times between the leading car and the second place car, and the gap is just going up and up and up all the time. It was 5 seconds a lap faster than the BMW at one point, and the gap is now 28.4 seconds, and it makes you wonder what's going on at Audi, because it's not just number 2. Number 1, even though it's a little bit quicker on certain laps, can do nothing about getting to a BMW pace either. Both of these cars that, remember, number 2 had worked his way into the lead. Now it just looks very, very distant in that second place, and it's dropping away even further. So is there something wrong with number 2? Down towards Stowe Corner it comes, Edward Sandstrom at the wheel of it. The flippant answer is to say, well, it's Sandstrom not as quick as Laurens Vanthoor, but I don't think it's as straightforward as that. Edward Sandstrom, as we've seen in previous races, is a quick driver. May not be as quick as Laurens Vanthoor, but even so, he can normally do a very, very good job. But at the moment, that car is struggling, as is number 1. And Stefano Ortelli, you wouldn't say, is slow, and his last lap was slower still than Edward Sandstrom's. In 4th place is Jeroen Den Boer, but he's another 46 seconds back on the leaders. And Mark Hayek then is 5th overall, he leads the Pro-Am Cup. So Mark Hayek is looking very, very good indeed now in that class lead. Adam Carroll is 6th, and his car is struggling for pace as well, with Gregoire de Mustier 7th, 2nd in Pro-Am, 8th now, 3rd in Pro-Am is Eugenio Amos after that good stint by Bonaccini. 9th is where we find Jean-Luc Bobelic, having taken over from Ludovic Badet, and 10th is number 37 BMW now, with Andrew Danilov at the wheel of it. Now, there are more drive-through penalties being handed out to midfield runners, so it's not going to affect things up front. But we're in a situation now, I think, where gaps are widening all the time. What might actually change before the end is 4th place overall, because Mark Hayek is lapping quicker than this car that you're looking at now. Certainly on his last lap he was. So your own Demboa, who is in 4th place, last time was caught by over a second by Mark Hayek, and it's 8.2 seconds between BMW and the now class leading, Pro-Am Cup leading Lamborghini of Mark Hayek. But there's still, I think, a bit of head scratching going on at Audi. So there's the 4th place BMW, and you can see what the gap is, come down in the sectors from 8.2 to 8.009 between Jeroen den Boer and Mark Hayek. Jeroen den Boer, who has been a very, very rapid Dutch saloon car racer. There's Mark Hayek chasing on behind him. Jeroen, who went from Seats and Volkswagens into the Dutch Suzuki Swift Cup and then into the Dutch Touring Car Series, came into GT racing last year, both in the Blancpain Endurance Series and the FIA GT3 Championship. He's been a front runner ever since, and a race winner, so he can certainly expect to be ahead of the Pro-Am Cup car, but he may not be for much longer. Mark Hayek, proving what a good job he can do and how well Peter Cox was going, is hunting him down. He's riding now with Mark Hayek, and ahead of him on the road there is the number 5 Saint-Ginion Racing McLaren, the British driver Jack Clark at the wheel of it. It's in 42nd place, that car now. Jack Clark in his first season of sports car racing. This has had brake problems over the course of the weekend, to be fair to the team, and therefore is perhaps not going as quickly as you might normally expect. Jack Clark goes a lap down, as past him on the inside goes Mark Hayek. Now, let's go and find out about what's happening with Audi. Haley has managed to find an answer, I think, from Pierre Dieudonné in the pit lane. Haley, let's find out. It's all yours.
Pierre, can you tell us why the Audi seem to be losing pace?
No, the leading car is Edward Sandstrom, and everything is fine at the moment. And just behind him, or a few seconds behind him, he has the number 1 Audi driven by Stéphane Otelli, and Stéphane seems to struggle a little bit with rear grip for whatever reason, but at the moment everything seems okay.
Thank you.
I think there are people that might argue with Pierre Dieudonné there when he says everything is okay, because it isn't. The cars are slower than the leading BMW, unless when they've looked after the tyres a bit in this stint, they're going to be able to push harder later. Maxime Martin has just done a lap in the 223s, slower than he has been doing, but still quicker than the Audis. And the advantage that he's got is a massive one, because, as I say, he's already long gone over the timing line and yet to arrive at the end of the same lap is number 2 Audi of Edward Sandstrom. So, as far as Pierre Dieudonné is concerned, the cars are okay. Mechanically they might be, but speed-wise, they're just not there, are they, against the Mark VDS Racing BMW. The gap is now 34.3 seconds. And remember, they left the pit lane almost nose to tail, admittedly, having lost the lead of the race in the pits, which is something else that the Audi team, I don't think, are going to be too pleased about. So that was a brave face being put on things by Pierre Dieudonné, I think. Away from the camera, it might be a completely different demeanour. Up towards Beckett goes the number 2 Audi, and Stéphane Otelli, struggling with rear grip, is 9 seconds back. Now, yes, off mic, we get to catch a glimpse of Pierre shrugging, so that shrug said it all, Pierre, yes. A picture tells 1,000 words. There it was. We don't know, I think we can safely say, but the cars are just not as quick as the BMW. But a brave face being put on matters, but for the moment they cannot match the lap times of the BMW. Phrase that how you want. Stéphane Otelli, 3rd, trying to catch that car. Now, is he going to be caught? Can't see him being caught by anybody unless things happen and bring out a safety car to bunch things up. Jeroen den Boer is 4th and has lost a bit too much time, but he's still being caught by Mark Hayek. Not by much, but it's come down to 7 seconds. Let's hear from Christopher Hausler now, because his car is in 3rd place. He was the last man in number 1. He's with Haley.
Christopher, is it tactical to be slower than the BMW?
Yeah, at the moment, It looks like that. The BMW is really quick, but the good thing is we have a really constant speed, and for that, I mean, we have, I don't know, I think 30 minutes to go. From that point, we don't give up, and we will see what will happen.
Thank you.
Well, the clock ticks on, 31 minutes of the race to go, so their speed may be consistent, but not doing anything to match the lap times of the leading car. In other words, they need that BMW to either chew its tyres or to have a mechanical drama. But for the moment, it looks very, very strong indeed. Number 3 BMW. Now 2 Audi lapping in the 226s, therefore slower, and very similar pace now between Sandstrom and Ortelli, so the gap there isn't really coming down by much either. The Ecuria Cos BMW, which is 35th and has Marco Attard at the wheel of it. Marco racing the car for the first time. I mention this because its team manager Mark Lemmer, it's run by Barwell Motorsport, is being summoned to the race director. So the car that was run here to win last year's race by Mark VDS Racing has attracted the attention of the officials. 71, Davide Rigon is in 12th place. Remember, this car went well with Daniel Zampieri at the wheel early on in the race, but now it is a long, long way down the order in 12th. It's on the lead lap, but it needs to push on and try and gain some more ground. 30 Aaron Scott there ahead of 18. Mike Parisi now. The red and white Mercedes up into 19th place. It's a lap behind, but Mike Parisi is a very quick driver and is one to watch, taking over for this weekend from Sean Edwards, who, as I say, has been winning today in the German Porsche Carrera Cup. So Mike Parisi 19th, storming past the Aaron Scott-driven Audi down toward Brooklands. Number 30 we saw having a spin early on in the race. It's in 30th place, a lap adrift of the Mercedes, so that was lapping rather than a battle for position. Santilok Audi's getting themselves together, and number 12 Gregoire de Moustier in the number 12 ART McLaren there, trying to work his way past these 2 lapped cars. Gregoire de Moustier is still pushing on in the Pro-Am class, and as number 40 Audi goes through, 41 there coming into the picture is the one that leads the Gentleman Trophy. Robert Hissam and Pierre Hershey, the drivers. It was started by Robert. Pierre Hershey has done his stint and now goes back to Robert Hissam for the last few laps of the race. Robert Hissam, who is an American who lives in London, started his racing in America, and then when he came to Europe, raced in the Venturi Challenge, the original Gentleman Drivers Series. Pierre Hershey, you saw there, and his son Jonathan, very rapid GT racer these days, having come out of Formula Renault a few years back. And there's the sister car, number 40, that was started by Marc Sourde. Then Jérôme Demey drove it, and Greg Gilver, who is much the quicker of the 3, bringing it home. And the car was dropping down the order earlier in the race. It's still needing to fight back, but it's 31st. Greg Gilver, the man behind the wheel at the moment, former Peugeot Spider champion, going back many years. Right, there is Robert Hissam, turning his way out of Stowe Corner. The car's looking very grubby now in these conditions as the final half an hour is cycled through, and it's been a stop-go penalty for Marco Attard. There it is. That's the go bit. You caught a glimpse of the stop down the pit lane, and that was for speeding in the pit lane. In fact, that's why the race director wanted to talk to the team. So Marco Attard, whether it was him speeding on his way out or Ollie Milroy speeding on his way in, don't know, but either way the car's had a stop-go and rejoins the race now. We are on lap 62, and it's 3-2-1 in terms of the numbers of the cars in the top 3 places. Number 3 BMW ahead of number 2 and number 1 Audi. Maxime Martin ahead of Edward Sandstrom, ahead of then Stefan Ortelli. There's Mark Hayek, who is still chasing Jeroen Den Boer, and the gap is still coming down, not massively, but with 27 minutes to go, there is still a chance that that could be a place change outright before the end. Down towards the left-hander at Brooklands comes Mark Hayek. Back marker Ferrari to be negotiated, easily down on the inside. More traffic up the road. He's going to be conscious, though, of the pace of Gregoire de Moustier, because the number 12 McLaren is not that far adrift, although on the last lap, in fact, Mark Hayek went quicker than Gregoire. That's how Pro-Am Cup looks at the moment. Mark Hayek leading the class from the McLaren of Gregoire de Moustier. 3 wide, the traffic going into Cops there. Third in Pro-Am is Eugenio Amos, ahead then of Jean-Luc Bobelic's number 20 Ferrari, and then Josh Wakefield in his first Blancpain Endurance Series race, first race at this level in number 59, and 37, Andrew Danilov, next up in 6th in Pro-Am Cup in the BMW. 7th in the class is number 51, Giuseppe Giro at the wheel of the STP-sponsored Ferrari. 8th in the class is the number 34 Henry Hasid Porsche, and then 42, which is now Arno Santamato in the Ferrari that he shares with Kevin Despanas and Emmett O'Brien, the Irish driver. Behind them, you've got the number 52 Ferrari, another of the AF Corsa cars, Maurizio Mediani at the wheel of it. Then Mike Parisi's Mercedes next in class. There's Gregoire de Moustier running second in the Pro-Am class then. And last lap that he did was a 2:27, a second faster than Mark Hayek. So for the first lap in a while, last time through the gap did come down slightly between the top two cars in Pro-Am. This lap, of course, you can see it for yourself. Gregoire de Moustier has got traffic to find a way through. That's going to affect matters for him. Down through the Vale they go. Meantime, there is 69 McLaren. Jamie Campbell-Walter, having taken the car over from Roel Goethe, but it's way, way down, that car, in 42nd place, I think, after Roel Goethe was losing time early on. And Gregoire de Moustier just getting past in a moment. Aaron Scott on the way up to Abbey. Did he go through on the inside? No. Aaron Scott hangs on to the place on the road for now. Of course, he's got to drive his own race. He wants to catch cars ahead of him if he can, and can't afford, therefore, to back off needlessly. He needs to maintain his own speed because he wants to try and catch Greg Gilbert in the number 40 Audi, his next target. So eventually Gregoire de Moustier goes by. Is that going to have affected his pursuit of Mark Hayek in the Pro-Am Cup battle? Let's see, because the cars now come onto the Wellington Straight. And as they do so, number 12 McLaren in the first sector of the lap was quicker than the Lamborghini, but in the middle sector, let's just see, he's about to break the timing point coming down towards Brooklands, loses very nearly 2 seconds. So caught a bit, lost a lot on that lap. Again, this is one of the big factors of the Blancpain Endurance Series. Because there are so many cars, you've got to be so good at getting through the traffic. Blue flags almost constantly being waved by the marshals now. The first casualty of the race, you might recall, was the spinning Jack Gerber. He handed the car over to Raffaele Gianmaria. Jack Gerber now back in it as the AM driver in the Pro-Am 2-driver entry, and he is in 33rd place in that car. So he's not been able to catch up too much. There's Adam Carroll, who's not really, I'm afraid to say, for whatever reason, clicked quite in these conditions as he did in the drying qualifying yesterday. So after Frank Kechler's very good opening stint, the car has faded away a little bit in the second and a little bit in the third stints. The car is currently 8th on the road. Now Adam is lapping in the 2 minutes 30s, which means that he's not catching, and he's actually being caught by Jean-Luc Beaubelic. So is all well with this car, because clearly after the way it went in the hands of Frank Kechler, maybe it was set up better for a full wet road than the greasy road that we have now. But either way, the car has lost pace. Onto the Hangar Straight. The car ahead on the road is 35, which is the Nissan that Chris Ward was put into on the last round of pit stops. Now that car must have had a problem, because it's fallen way back to 32nd. I wasn't concentrating on its last pit stop, but as their spray is kicked up by the leader, the 35 Nissan, I think, must have had a small problem. Chris Ward having dropped places. As I say, he's the chief instructor here, so he knows his way around the circuit. Can't believe it was a spin, therefore, but the car much further down the order than it was earlier on. Maxime Martin again keeping his tyres cool on the wet part of the road. So up towards Abbey goes Maxime Martin in the sectors. He's now doing comparable times to the Audis, so his pace has slackened off a little bit. I think conscious that he's got 46 seconds in hand. It's an enormous gap, this, considering how close they were when they left the pit lane. Even if the Audis suddenly come on strong, I can't see them bringing that down. Just getting larger and larger all the time. 46 seconds on lap 63 is the lead margin between the top two. So the BMW, with just so much extra speed in the car, driving away from the opposition. There is the Mark VDS Racing team, looking quietly confident at the moment. Yes, thumbs up from the mechanics. Junior members still slumbering in the background, you'll notice. Number 2, Edward Sandstrom, still second as he comes out of Club Corner. He was 5 thousandths slower in the first sector of this lap. And actually, Stefan Ortelli, whisper it, was a 10th quicker than Maxime Martin in Sector 1 on this lap. But 1/10 here or there is not going to make a huge difference. It needs to be chunks taken out And Stefan, of course, is still creeping up, but not really getting much closer to the back of his teammate here. So again, the Audis that looked good in that middle stint certainly dropped away in the last one. Behind them, fourth is Jeroen den Boer. Pierre Dieudonné forces a smile. But the win is going to come here, unless the BMW overuses those tyres. Maxime Martin pushing hard, building up a lead. That's what Bas Linders tried to do, but then of course had to back off towards the end of his stint. But even if that happens, over 46 seconds of a gap should be enough to preserve to the end, shouldn't it, to keep the race lead. Down to Brooklands comes the Audi. Number 1, Stefan Ortelli, struggling for rear grip, pushing on. Accelerating now through Woodcote corner, lapped Ferrari, number 38 behind, which was the Jay Palmer, Alessandro Benetti, now David McDonald Ferrari. David McDonald having his first Blancpain race, another driver moving from junior single-seater racing into GT cars, having done some Ginetta racing in the UK, now turning to international sports cars, and going pretty well here. One or two people reluctant to face the cameras in the pit lane. Belgian Audi Club drivers still force a smile. Second and third, hardly a bad result, but I think they'll be frustrated with the pace of those cars relative to the leader. Getting stuck in there was Edward Sandstrom, working his way through traffic onto the Hanger Straight. Look, the BMW that's 13th just to the left of it, Vandroop Danilov. Also the United Autosports McLaren in the mix as well. Heading down towards Stoke Corner. Through on the inside goes Sandstrom. Gets past 22, which did rejoin after David Brabham's off. And Alvaro Parent is the man behind the wheel of it. And it's going very, very quickly now, that car, as you'd expect. 36, Jeroen den Boer comes through in 4th place in the BMW. That lap by the Dutchman was a 2:28. Mark Hayek is still catching him. It was 8 seconds at the start of this stint. It's down to 3. I reckon Mark Hayek is still going to be good to take 4th overall if he carries on at this pace. He's leading the class, which is what he wants to be doing, but he could get 4th place overall as well. Through the Beckett's S's comes the DB Motorsport BMW. Team manager of number 13 Mercedes, that's the Carl Wendlinger Mercedes, in 14th place, now heading to the race director. But nothing more has been done after Stefan Ortelli's transgression. Most of these, not all, but most of these are for track limits, but Stefan's calmed down, I think, after he was warned earlier. There's Mark Hayek coming towards us, in and amongst the back markers, threading his way through slower cars, heading into Stoke Corner. Now down through Vale he goes, with number 40 Audi behind. That's the Greg Gilvaire car, that's 2 laps back on him. A brave Mike Parisi there, look on the inside, at number 18 Mercedes. That car is now 17th, just gone through, in fact, to get past Henry Hassid. So that was a change of place, you saw, for 17th overall, and the Mercedes goes through. 24, which is Mark Hayek, 5th overall, still catching the BMW ahead. Quicker by 2/10 in the first sector of this lap, so it's all helping, chipping away at the margin between himself and the Dutchman. Maxime Martin continues to lead the way. His last lap was in the 2:23, so he's a little bit slower than he was going earlier, but still looking very strong. Now let's hear from the Lamborghini team, because Hans Reiter, but first Peter Cox down in the pit lane with Haley.
Awesome stint for you, Peter. Now it's down to Mark to bring it home in a good position.
Yeah, we're doing. Mark is doing obviously a fantastic job, because he is very busy this year. He has not driven a lot, and I have a new engineer this race, my team owner Hans Reiter. Actually, we won here 15 years ago with the McLaren, the GT1 car, in the rain also. So maybe he's a better race engineer than team owner. I'm not sure yet.
Hans, it's looking like it could be a class win for you.
Yeah, first, thank you for the flowers. Thank you, really. And second, it's not finished yet, but it looks at least very impressive. Mark is doing a fantastic job. His fastest lap time was 2 minutes 19, which is as fast as the leader, so I'm really impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah, that win that Peter Cox had in the McLaren was a race that was so wet, it was stopped early, in fact, in the old FIA GT Championship days when he shared the McLaren with Roberto Ravaglia, but so wet did the track become that it had to be stopped a bit early. Thankfully, it's dried out today. It may not be a sunny Silverstone, but it's not as wet as it was at the very start of the race. Mark Hayek then is in 5th place, and the gap is 2.3 seconds to Jeroen den Boer. So Peter Cox makes a very valid point. Mark is doing an excellent job for somebody who is not as regular a racer as others. He's not done much racing this year. There you can see the two cars, the white and blue and yellow BMW, and behind it is the white Lamborghini hunting it down. Jeroen Den Boer is trying to get past Mike Parisi, whose last lap was a 2:25. That's quicker than Jeroen Den Boer. So the BMW is struggling a little bit now. Quite a lot of cars are struggling in this last stint. I just wonder whether it's set up. If they've been set up for a very wet road and things have now dried out, that could be why they're compromised and just not being able to improve the pace that they need to. So number 12, McLaren you're looking at is Gregoire de Moustier. After his good effort and Duncan Tappy's good effort earlier on, the McLaren's another car that's faded a bit, and it's slow coming out of Stowe Corner. Has it got a problem? Loses pace, picks up again, does it? Yes, just, but that McLaren looks rather slow going down through the Vale. Aaron Scott has arrived right on his tail, and de Moustier is slow coming out of Club Corner. Number 12 has got a problem. Big dramas for a car that's been going so strongly up to this point. And Gregoire de Moustier limps out of Club past the new pit facility at Silverstone, and then the car seems to pick up speed again. So there's certainly an intermittent problem, but it's enough to really hobble that car now. As Maxime Martin once again goes for the wet part of the road. Flashes his lights at the slower car to say, get out of my way please, I'm quick and I'm coming after you. So he's looking after his tyres. He's looking after a race lead that's now 54.5 seconds. It's just an amazing stint, this, by Maxime Martin, coupled with whatever is going on for the Audis. Could be set up, could be just that the cars are not as good at Silverstone as the BMW, which has always been strong here, and certainly Mark VDS Racing has always been looking forward to this round because they know the car works well here. But there's number 12, McLaren, limping now out of the left-hander at Aintree, down Wellington Straight. It's bound for the pit lane. Just wondering whether there's something looking loose or flapping on the front right of that car. It's hard to gauge on the shot there going down Wellington Straight, but it does look as though this car is going to head to the pit lane. So number 12, disappointment, was running second in Pro-Am, and now will have to go to the pit lane, and that could be the end of the race for it. Let's see. And that's with just 14.5 minutes to go. Doesn't head for the pit lane, limps on. So I think they're going to try and stagger around to the end of the race now rather than lose yet more time in the pit lane. But there is the man that leads the class, Mark Hayek. And he's almost up with, he is up with the BMW now. So from 8 seconds, the gap has come right down to a 10th starting this lap. And where does Mark Hayek make his move? It's for 4th. He doesn't need to get past the BMW for class points. Number 40, Audi, is in the same class but a lap adrift, so he can afford to let that car go. That's not what he's racing against. It's the BMW next up the road that Mark Hayek wants to get past. Down they come towards Club Corner once more at the end of Vale. BMW heads to the outer part of the road. Over the timing line shortly will come the second and third place cars for the completion of their 67th lap. They're having to make the wet tyres last for another 13.5 minutes, but still can't think it's dry enough to go onto slick tyres. Especially, it would take too long to get the warmth into them, never mind the fact that it's still a bit greasy out there. So they're going to have to live with what they've got and try to look after them to the end. But last time around, Maxime Martin doing a 2:25. That's a kind of Edward Sandstrom pace. Still doesn't help the Audis because they need to be quicker, not matching. But it's significant that Maxime Martin's pace now is slackening off. But then again, he's got such a massive lead, 55 seconds, that he can afford so to do. Mark Hayek there, about to make his move. Look, coming down towards Brooklands. This is for 4th place overall. He goes storming round on the outside. And as they go into Brooklands, has he got the traction there right round the outside of the BMW? Yes, he has. Fantastic move by Mark Hayek round the outside of Jeroen Den Boer. And the Lamborghini goes through then up into 4th place overall. Excellent stuff. Both Peter Cox and Hans Reiter pretty impressed by that. Justifiably so. Great move that by Mark Hayek to take 4th overall. Round the outside at Brooklands, and it's given him the place. Very, very brave stuff that. Jeroen Den Boer then falls away. Now, is he going to be caught by Eugenio Amos? It's a big gap between those two, so I don't think he is. There you can see the leading car. 12 minutes are on the clock now. Maxime Martin comes into Woodcote, and as he comes over the timing line now, the gap we'll see between him and an Audi in about a minute when the Audi comes through. This is how Mark Hayek made the move. Very, very late on the brakes, swoops around the outside going into Brooklands. And despite the fact he was heading for the wetter part of the road, he managed to just get the car back towards a grippier part of the circuit there and move himself up to the inside going into Luffield with his nose in front, and that was enough to give him the place. So great stuff that. Mark Hayek, 4th overall and continuing to lead the class. So Maxime Martin now driving at a rather more steady pace in the 225, slower than he was doing earlier on, working his way down towards Stowe Corner. Waiting for an Audi to come across the line, and we can see just what the gap is. It was 55 seconds a lap ago, 55.6 now, so it's about half a lap between the two cars, and that's with 50 minutes or so within this stint having been completed. So they were virtually nose to tail when they went into the race again, and now 55.6 seconds between them. Ferrari battle raging on there as you see the cars going down through Vale. And Alvaro Parent is being given a drive-through penalty, number 22 McLaren, for exceeding the track limits. You're looking here at number 59. This is Josh Wakefield in his first race at this level, new to the GT racing, new to this car, new to the championship. Done some Ginetta racing, done a bit of British GT racing, but as I say, at this level, first time. And again, another driver looking for the wetter part of the circuit. Behind him there is Jean-Luc Beaubely. You've had a place change between the two of them. So Josh Wakefield has got himself up past the Software Autosport Promotion car, and we're into the last 10 minutes of the race, just about, as the cars come now through Village into the loop. Josh Wakefield certainly doing a good job in that car as he accelerates now through Aintree. So the race now with 10 minutes remaining. Maxime Martin speeded up again in the sectors, in fact, to pull away from Edward Sandstrom yet further. And we're getting a replay here of the BMW heading along Angus Straight, finding the wet part of the circuit, turning into Stowe, and Maxime Martin going to the outside of the circuit there, where there's often a bit more grip to be found, and it's all looking pretty good for him at the moment, but not good, I'm afraid, for Jack Gerber, who has had his second spin of the race, and at the same place as well. From memory, it was that part of the track, Village into the loop, that he lost it at earlier on. So he rejoins just ahead of the Ferrari 430, which is third in the Gentleman Trophy at the moment. The 430 Ferrari heads down towards Brooklands, 45th overall. Still going. Despite all the drama we've had in this race, the reliability has been pretty good on most cars. We've only lost 3 or 4, and 1 or 2 of those have been with damage. So as we look with 9 minutes to go, the cars here coming out of Woodcote Corner. The Audi chasing on in the hands of Stefan Ortelli, trying to work its way through traffic. Edward Sandstrom goes through. Stefan Ortelli has got that gap down to 6.6 seconds, but the Audi is so evenly matched, mean that never really has Stefan been able to do anything significant about catching Edward Sandstrom here. But the BMW is just so fast, isn't it? Driving off into the distance. Can Mark Hayek do anything about Stefan Ortelli? No, that's too tall an order, I think, isn't it? Even given the way Mark Hayek has gone in this race. Jeroen Demboa, well, he is being reeled in by Eugenio Amos, because it's 14.5 seconds, but 3 seconds a lap is the difference in pace. So that's another one to look for. There is Amos coming now through the loop up towards Aintree. He was 9/10 quicker in the first sector. I think he's going to run out of time, but Eugenio Amos here is having a real go to see what he can do about getting 5th place overall. I think they've started celebrating already at Mark VDS. There are still 7.5 minutes to go, but the party has almost started. 1 or 2 more pensive faces, but by and large I think they're pretty chuffed with this. 59 seconds. Can this lead gap get over a minute before the checkered flag? I think yes, undoubtedly will be the answer, at which point Maxime Martin can really throttle back and coast it home, can't he? 7.5 minutes less now after run in the race here at Silverstone, the second round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. Next stop, Paul Ricard. Maybe some sunshine. Maybe somebody can stop Mark VDS, but on the evidence of here, this just is such an awesome team. Very good car. This one very reliable, unlike the sister car, sadly, in this race. It's been well driven, but this last stint has just been so good for them. Everything's fallen into place. speed of the car is there, but against that, other teams just struggling. Not just the Audis, to be fair, but nobody really has been able to do any lap times at all like those set by Maxime at the start of this stint. Still the best lap of the race, shown from the 11th lap when it was really wet for Mike Hazelman's, which is a bit of a quirk, but that's the best lap of the race according to the official timing. And as the drivers work their way down towards Stowe, even though things are drier now and the road was wet and cars with a wet setup were making their way through the race early on when there was less traffic to worry about. That's when we had some good lap times being set. So Maxime Martin, last lap 2:24. Edward Sandstrom is behind him and is now over a minute back. Yes, when it gets to a minute, the timing screen doesn't give you the gap, it just says 1 minute. So it has happened. How much over a minute the gap will be, we'll wait and find out as the last few laps unfold. But for Marc VDS Racing, there's just no stopping them in this championship at the moment. 2 wins at the back end of last year, seemingly 2 wins at the start of this season. There is the BMW working its way up now to Village. Some fans have now ventured out into the elements, pint in hand, to cheer home the winners, with Maxime Martin now coming through Village. Behind him is Aaron Scott's Audi number 30, that's 29th. Behind that, another lap back, in fact, is 37, which is Deno Malashko. Oh, I've got the cans out here now. Right, so put the pint down, get the tinnies open. Drinking seems to go quite strongly with endurance racing here, doesn't it? Through Brooklands goes the leading BMW then. For Maxime Martin, his drink will come later on. And that's the next GT3 homologated special, I think, for next season. So with the young fans sheltering from the elements and occupying themselves for another 5 minutes. Now, in traffic, you've got the Belgian Audi Club Team WRT Audi of Edward Sandstrom, which is still in a somewhat distant second place, to be fair. Second and third, not bad results, let's face it, but I think the team will be frustrated with how distant they are. Second and third, not that bad, but the gap between the top 2 cars, that's the really crucial bit for Audi to try and work out exactly where the pace went to. Gentleman Trophy still being headed by number 41, but only just, because now we've got a right scrap on our hands, because there, look at the top 2 cars in the class. Number 41, which is being driven by Robert Hisson, has got the Swedish driver Michael Bender right up behind. They're heading down now into Brooklands, being affected slightly by lead lap Audis getting past them. But Michael Bender in the Swedish car, the silver, green and yellow one to the outside line, former Porsche Cup racer in Scandinavia, Swedish GT racer, Formula 3 racer, tries to go right around the outside there, can't do it. So we may have outright a somewhat dominant lead in the Gentleman Trophy. It's going to go down to the wire, 3 3/4 minutes to go, and the 2 Audis there absolutely nose to tail coming over the line. It's just Robert Hisson ahead, but Michael Bender, who has to get out of the way of another quick car there, one of the Ferraris wriggling its way past him, turns out of Cops Corner now. These cars are in 38th and 39th overall, but it's going to go down to the wire between them. This is how GT racing should pan out, with cars scrapping right the way to the end. Now they're interrupted slightly because they've got the Ferrari between them, which looks like number 10. Yes, it is, the Sofrev car. Jérôme Policant in 22nd place. That's the car he shares with Maurice Ricci and Gabriel Balthazar. 2 AMs against the definite pro driver, Jérôme Policant, so the car's having to come from quite a long way back in the classification in this race, which is even too much for Jérôme to manage, I think. But as he gets past Robert Hisson, there is Michael Bender in the number 98 Audi going into the right-hander of Stowe. Now the Ferrari has got past both the Audis, so that's the faster cars having lapped the slower ones. In other words, the 2 Audis now can concentrate on their own scrap. Down he comes into the club corner part of the circuit, and the pace that Michael Bender has got suggests that he's going to be able to find a way through before the end of the race. But Robert Hisson is defending strongly. This is the car that he shares with Pierre Hershey. 2-driver entry versus a 3-driver entry. Jan Brunstedt having started, and Jochen Mangs doing the middle stint in that car, going now up towards Abbey, then Farm. And Michael Bender trying now to find a gap. 2 more minutes to go, so there is now less than a lap time left in the race. Maxime Martin, I think he's on his last lap now, yes, because he's in the first sector, so it should be the last lap for the race leader. So Michael Bender has got the end of this lap and one more in which to find a way past. There was almost an effort made there, going up to the loop. Didn't pay off for him. Now, can he get the momentum out of Aintree and attack at the end of Wellington Straight, going down towards Brooklands, the track drying, cars on wet tyres, so drivers having to think about tyre wear. In some cases, down they come towards Brooklands. Robert Hissam in a straight line just gets away slightly by another couple of lengths, but Michael Bender, very experienced driver, closes right up under braking, coming through Brooklands. They'll get one more lap out of this as they turn their way through Luffield. Remember that the number 3 BMW is now halfway around what could turn out to be its last lap, should turn out to be its last lap, given the way the clock looks at the moment, with just a minute and change on it now, as over the line to start the last lap for them go the Gentleman Trophy top 2. And still Robert Hissam hangs on in there. So Maxime Martin has gone through the first sector, which is on the Hanger Straight, and looking at the clock into the last minute. Race officials on the pit wall, stopwatch in hand, checkered flag in hand, get themselves ready to receive the leading car. There, the Gentleman Trophy now being lapped by a charging Alvaro Parent going up through Beckett's. So Michael Bender has done the catching of 41. He's now alongside. Is this going to be the change? They're side by side at Beckett's, and yes, going through is then Michael Bender, who takes over the lead of the Gentleman Trophy right at the very end of the race there. We've had that change between them, and not only that, but you've got a Pro-Am Cup Ferrari as well splitting them, so that's going to help potentially Michael Bender to build a little bit of a gap then as the cars go towards Stowe Corner. David McDonald, the Scottish driver it is in 38, who was going between them, and Michael Bender lets him go. So we've got then the leading car, 12 seconds on the clock. It's going to be touch and go this. Is he coming through for the checkered flag? 7 seconds on the clock it should be. It's going to be time to perfection this. 3, 2, 1, clock hits 0. The checkered flag is at the ready, and it's going to be 2 out of 2 for Mark VDS Racing in the Blancpain Endurance Series, because Maxime Martin, Bas Linders and Marcus Palteler win again. 2 out of 2 this season, 4 in a row if you take 2011 into account as well. There's just no stopping the Belgian team. The BMW wins again. There's Marcus Palteler there, Bas Linders celebrating. And for second and third, the Audis have got themselves together on the last lap. But is this too little too late? Stefan Ortelli then chasing Edward Sandstrom home. Might be a formation finish for the cameras, but that's only for second and third. Stefan Ortelli then on the tail of his teammate. There, Adam Carroll comes across the line 9th. Not really the result we expected out of that car. It looked so good early on, but the whole complexion of the race changed around about the halfway mark. Now, that last stint particularly might have been a completely different race given the order that we've had and the pace of different cars. So really peculiar last hour that we've had. The Belgian Audi Club Team WRT mechanics are standing on the pit wall ready to cheer home the cars. There they are, second and third. It's good for them in the championship, but the lack of pace in that last stint, something that they'll go away and try and get to the bottom of, I'm sure. 54.7 seconds was the gap at the end. Maxime Martin having backed off a little bit on his last lap between the BMW and Sandstrom. Ortelli third. Mark Hayek is going to come through for fourth. There he is to win shortly. Pro-Am Cup. Excellent effort this by the 24 Lamborghini. Mark started, Peter Cox did that amazing middle stint, as you expect from Peter, just flat out all the way. And he was able to get the car back into the lead despite losing out to Alessandro Bonaccini. Mark Hayek being able to fend off Eugenio Amos, who is still hunting down Jeroen Demboa, but not quickly enough. The gap has come down between them for 5th place, but not by enough. And so as Peter Cox and Hans Reiter there look on, number 24 Lamborghini makes its way out of Luffield into Woodcote Corner, and coming up now over the start and finish line. So 24, Mark Hayek comes through to take the checkered flag, to take a very well-deserved 4th place, but more importantly to win the Pro-Am category. And that is the main aim for that team, and big celebrations. Remember, that car didn't appear at Monza because of work commitments for Mark Hayek. So first time out this year, and it's a win. Second in the class is going to be 57 when it gets to the line. Eugenio Amos, Alessandro Bonaccini and Giacomo Petrobelli. And third should go to, and this is a really good effort, this, 59, Michael Lyons, Andrea Ceccato and Josh Wakefield. Josh having his first outing in the car in the championship and racing at this level. And a really good result for them, that. And the Gentleman Trophy, we've seen with number 98 take the lead of the class. There is 57, which finishes second in Pro-Am. Michael Bender will head home, Robert Hissam. And third in the class should go to 73, the Monza winning Ferrari of Paolo Palladino, Paolo Andreassi and Beniamino Caccia, but there is the car that's second in Pro-Am, and that's the car that has just wiped the floor with everybody at Silverstone. Absolutely dominated the last hour, and although it was way down the order when Bas Linders took it over after Marcus Paltela's shortish first stint, Bas worked it up into contention, did some very good lap times, got the lead, lost the lead, but then that pit stop, the last pit stop, put them ahead of the Audis, and then the car just drove off into the distance. 25th Bas Linders was after his stop. When he took the car over, he led, he dropped to second, handed the car over to Maxime Martin, came into the pit lane second, it left in the lead. It's won again. There may well be a rush on orders for BMW Z4s pretty soon, because clearly, especially if Marc VDS is running it, it's the car to have in GT3 racing at the moment. Big cheer for Maxime Martin. He gets out of the car and he makes his way then to celebrate with the team. And the engineers have all done a great job. And for Belgian teams, of course, it's a top three. You've got Belgian Marc VDS Racing ahead of the Belgian Audi club here. Freak mayonnaise all round, I think. So celebrations start. Bas Linders grinning from ear to ear. Marcus Paltela is somewhere in the crowd there as well, I should think, having done the first stint in that car. And yet again, a victory then for Marc VDS Racing. Audi's second and third, Lamborghini fourth, BMW fifth, Ferrari, leading Ferrari only in sixth place. Seventh Ferrari, eighth Ferrari, ninth BMW, 10th Ferrari. That's the way they came home. So there's the Silverstone wing, and it's the BMW victory here at what is now a greasy rather than wet Silverstone, but ghastly weather for the teams to cope with early on. But in the end, we have the win for Marc VDS Racing, and that of course all helps within the championship because it's going to increase the lead that the drivers have. And it's the same top two that we had at Monza. The number 3 BMW ahead of the number 2 Audi. In the Pro-Am class, things rather different, with the Lamborghini the winner. Well, let's hear from the winning BMW. Maxime Martin, Bas Linders and Marcus Paltela with Haley.
Max, congratulations, your 4th consecutive win for the team.
Yeah, it's perfect. The team did a perfect job on pit stops. We won some places, some time. Marcus and Bas did really good stints, so we could stay on top all the time, and yeah, we finished first, 4th time. Yeah, it's perfect.
Marcus, continuing the win for the team.
It's actually pretty amazing, but I could get used to it, and it's just great. But this is really, again, a teamwork where our both pit stops were perfect. Both teammates did a perfect stint, so yeah, it's just great.
And Bas, you thought you were going to struggle with straight line speed here this weekend, but you certainly delivered in the BMW.
Yeah, well, straight line speed is not the big issue here, but still there are some quick corners which helps us. But again, the rain helped us to make it look a little bit easier. But I'm sure next race, Paul Ricard will be hot, will be very long straights. So again, there will be a fierce battle.
Thank you, guys.
Well, we had some fierce battles, certainly for the first 2 hours, didn't we? And conflicting results, contrasting results for Marc VDS. There's a car that retired very, very early on, 18 laps done only by the Mike Hazelman's car, and out of the race with the fuel pressure problems. But the sister car wins once again. And of course, Mike Hazelman's still with that fastest lap of the race to his name. But it's going to be one car as the winner, the other brought back on the flatbed recovery unit. So BMW wins again, Audi second again, Edward Sandstrom, Laurens Vanthoor and Andrea Piccini returning to the Blancpain Endurance Series and doing the first stint. And Laurens Vanthoor was the man that got the car into the lead, but that last stint the car's nowhere near looking as though they had the pace of that leading BMW. So Audi second, Audi third, Stefan Ortelli and the Christophers, Haas and Mies. So 1 or 2 cars to be retrieved around the circuit. Let's hear from Edward Sandstrom and the 2 co-drivers, Laurens Vanthoor and Andrea Piccini. They are with Haley in the pit lane.
Congratulations, Edward. The Audi was on form, but not as quick as the BMW.
No, some stages in the race I think we had the quickest car, but the last stint when it was a little bit more greasy on the track, I think the BMW was quite strong, so I couldn't keep the pace anyway. I tried my best, and in the end I just tried to save the car home and not push too hard. So, but it was a very nice race. We come from 21st, so I'm very happy, and my teammates did a great job, and the team as well, the WRT.
Andrea, going into Paul Ricard, it's going to be completely different weather conditions. Is that going to go to your advantage?
Yeah, especially because I'm not going to be there. So these two guys will be there, and Marco will be replacing me for that race. But for sure will be different. So I think will be sunny there. So maybe even more difficult because yesterday we've been struggling quite a lot on the dry. We are quick on the wet, but on the dry, the BMW seems to be at the moment on another planet.
And Lawrence, finishing on the podium with your co-driver from the GT1 World Championship.
Yeah, it was a nice race. It's different to drive against Stefan, but in the end we're all a team and we all work together. And I'm happy yet again we are on the second place spot on the podium. So it was, I think, a good weekend for us.
Thank you, guys.
So the drivers there making their way up onto the podium, and hand the crash helmets back to the team, and then they'll go to the podium and then on to the press conference in the fullness of time. So the drivers head up the stairs, and we'll have, of course, the podiums for the top three overall, which is the Pro Cup, and then for the top three in Pro-Am, and the Gentleman Trophy as well, where we did get, in the end, the 3 finishers. There's the impressive BRDC clubhouse overlooking the stadium, the last sequence of corners at Silverstone. And we'll hear next from the Pro-Am class winners. Tremendous effort by Peter Cox and Mark Hayek, of course, because Mark was the man that did the hard work at the end, and he gave the team 4th overall and a class win.
Mark, congratulations, a fantastic stint. How difficult was that for you?
Actually, it was okay. Always difficult trying to go fast and not go out, but the car was perfect. Did great work. Got it in a good position for Peter, so just trying to go as fast as possible.
And Peter, again, fantastic performance from yourself. How happy is Hans Reiter for the team right now?
I think he's very happy. You know, the team works always very, very hard, and it's always very nice to have a good result. And I think this was the best possible job we could do, and the team did a tremendous job in the pit stop. So for once, everything worked really nicely for us.
Thank you, guys.
So the drivers then in Pro-Am, the class winners, Peter Cox and Mark Hayek. And the winning drivers in a few moments will make their way out onto the podium at the end of this second round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. Another fascinating race that we've had at Silverstone. Lots to think back on over the 3 hours that we've had, with some cars coming good towards the end, others starting off well and fading away. And there you can see the winners making their way out onto the podium. And Mark van der Straten as well, who is Mark VDS, arrives taking photographs of his mechanics. Great charismatic part of this championship is the boss. Hands his camera to Stefan Rattel, joins in the celebrations. Happy teams on the podium, BMW, Audi, Audi. And for the third place drivers, Stefan Ortelli, Christopher Mies, Christopher Hasse, a better result here than at Monza when they had that slight suspension problem at the very end, and so had a slow pit stop and a not 100% push last stint from Stefan Ortelli. But here they improve, they get third place, and trophies handed to the Christophers, Hasse and Mies, and to Stefan Ortelli. Not the first time he's been on the Silverstone podium, that's for sure. Stefan has been very, very successful here in his many, many visits to Silverstone. The sister car gets second. 0.6 of a second were between them at the very end. And Laurence Vanthoor, Andrea Piccini, welcome back. And Edward Sandstrom receiving their trophies. And then it's going to be a very noisy reception, I'm sure, from the Belgians below for the winners. Marcus Palteler, Bas Leinders, Maxime Martin and Mark van der Straten, who receive their trophies now. Winners yet again in the Blancpain Endurance Series. 2 wins at the end of last year, 2 at the start of this year. That's the 4 in a row. And this winning streak just looks as though it's going to carry on, because the pace of the car, very, very impressive. So the drivers celebrate, and then the winning team manager, Mark van der Straten, gets his trophy as well and gets the biggest cheer of the lot. Bas Leinders leading the whistling and the applause. And the champagne is, in some cases, about to be sprayed. Baz, I think, just wants to drink it. So very, very happy drivers, understandably, on the Silverstone podium. If they weren't wet 3 hours ago at the start of the race, they're wet now. Stefano Ortelli, they're getting soaked. So the Belgian Audi Club, Team WRT, second and third. And how long is it going to be before somebody, is it Audi, is it a different brand, topples Marc VDS from the top of the podium? So, cheers all round. Drivers have a quick drink, and then we'll make their way off the podium, and we'll go to the Pro-Am Cup podium next of all. Might not be the work of the moment, I think, for the drivers to leave the podium. All still busy chatting amongst themselves and celebrating, and photographs being taken. But then the top three in the Pro-Am category will make their way up there. The third place team, as I was saying, it's a very, very good result for Josh Wakefield, along with Michael Lyons, and the third driver of the Ferrari, who did the first stint, Andrea Ceccato. And if they stay as a combination for the rest of the year, I think they're going to get some very, very good results before the season is out. If third isn't good enough, I think they'll go even better than that before the end. And the Audi drivers, you can see, trophies in hand. Stefano Ortelli making his way off the podium with what's left of his champagne. So now the bottles drop to the mechanics, who catch them fortuitously. And then the Pro-Am top three will make their way out onto the podium. Mark van der Straten congratulating and thanking everybody. He has certainly added a great amount of colour to GT racing, not just the Blancpain series, but the FIA GT1 World Championship and the Nürburgring 24 Hours as well in recent times. So there's confirmation of how they finished in Pro Cup. The Marc VDS Racing BMW ahead of the Belgian Audi Club R8 LMS Ultras, second and third. DB Motorsports BMW fourth, and then the Vita 4-1 BMW in fifth in class. Sixth, Kessel Racing, the car that Davide Rigon brought home, and it started by Zampieri and Stefano Guttuso doing the middle stint. Seventh in class, Koen Wouters, Anthony Kumpen and Carl Wendlinger, Mark Henrici, Xavier Marson and Mark Goossens. Eighth ahead of the Bell, Brabham, Parent, McLaren. So the drivers in Pro-Am onto the podium, already there, Josh Wakefield, Michael Lyons and Andrea Ceccato. Now Giacomo Petrobelli, Eugenio Amos and Alessandro Bonaccini make their way onto the podium, and Mark Hayek and Peter Cox, the class winners, onto the podium as well. Really, really good last stint that by Mark Hayek, and shows how much he's learned over the seasons he's been paired with Peter Cox. Peter, very, very fast driver, very dependable driver as well, and his tutelage has certainly paid dividends as the two drivers score a class win, with the emphasis really put on Mark Hayek, because he's had to do more driving here at Silverstone. So the trophy is to be presented to the drivers, and you can see the third place drivers there. The youth club, Michael Lyons, Josh Wakefield and Andrea Ceccato. Andrea the most experienced of the three, and who can hold the trophy the highest? Michael, I think. He's probably the tallest driver. He's a very successful driver in historic single-seater racing, and as I said during the race, has turned his attention these last couple of years to modern GT cars, and he goes really well in them. There, the second place drivers, Giacomo Petrobelli in the middle, along with Eugenio Amos on his left, Alessandro Bonaccini, and Mr. Blancpain receives his trophy. Mark Hayek, along with Peter Cox, as the winners in the Pro-Am category in this second round of the Blancpain Endurance Series at Silverstone. And the champagne already being sprayed. There's no way to treat the sponsor, is it, to soak him, but Mark Hayek gives as good as he gets. And celebrations for the drivers then here on the podium at Silverstone. And of course, by dint of not racing at Monza, first time out, first win of the year for the Lamborghini drivers. So if they've got champagne in their eyes, they're not going to be able to see very much. They stagger off the podium. But and I head to the press conference, and Mark Hayek, another victory. And it goes to show how competitive these days the Pro-Am Cup driver combinations are, that you've got the winner 4th overall, and then 2nd and 3rd, 6th and 7th overall. The Pro Cup entry is very, very strong, of course, with all 3 pro drivers in the cars, but it goes to show you how good the so-called amateurs are in the Pro-Am Cup. The driver grading system applies in Pro-Am, where you can be gold, silver or bronze or platinum, depending on your success. In the end, it is the Lamborghini of Reiter Engineering, Mark Hayek and Peter Cox, that takes the class from the Ferraris of Amos Bonacini and Petrobelli, Wakefield, Ceccato and Lyons, then Sofrev's Ferrari, Boboli, Guillard and Badet, ahead of Gatenio Ardagna, the Venezuelan, with Dan Brown and Giuseppe Chiero, and then 6th in class, the troubled McLaren at the end of Grégoire de Moustier and Duncan Tappy. Mercedes 7th, Mike Parisi doing the last stint, BMW 8th after Jochen Habet's very good first hour in the car. And so that's 2 of the 3 classes attended to, and now the Gentleman Trophy drivers go to the podium in a moment. At the end of this 2nd round of the Blancpain Endurance Series, the Gentleman Trophy won by Michael Bender, Jochen Mangs and Jan Brunstedt. Well, another enthralling race in the Blancpain Endurance Series from Silverstone, and as there Michael Bender, Jochen Mangs, Jan Brunstedt make their way towards the podium. It's been another victory for Marc VDS Racing. Can anybody stop the Belgian team? 2nd win in a row this year for Marc VDS Racing. The next stop is Paul Ricard. From Silverstone, from Haley Coxon and David Addison, goodbye for now. And there are the Gentleman Trophy drivers on the podium, with the Swedes delighted on the top step. So there we are, the winning drivers then on the podium, and for 3rd place, the team that won at Monza in the oldest car in the race, the Ferrari 430, Beniamino Caccia, who was the start driver, and his 2 co-drivers, the 2 Venezuelans of Pablo Palladini and Paolo Andreassi, who were the drivers that took over. 2nd in the end, Robert Hissam and Pierre Hershey receiving their trophies. Pierre Hershey with the glasses on. And then the winners, Michael Bender, Jochen Mangs and Jan Brunstedt, who came home victorious then in the JB Motorsport run. Audi, a car that retired at Monza, so a much better result here in this 2nd round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. Delighted drivers all round, and they will make their way now from the podium, once of course the champagne has gone everywhere and made a soggy podium even wetter at Silverstone. So there, the drivers. I think Pierre Hershey was the one coward in all of that, who sort of legged it to one side of the podium, but comes back for a full bottle, you see. Gentlemen drivers know how to celebrate on a podium, and it's with a bit less fluster than some of the other teams. So this is how the Gentleman Trophy looked in the end, with the Dodge Viper being a retirement early on with damage. Michael Bender, Jan Brunstedt, Jochen Mangs the winners, from Robert Hissam and Pierre Hershey, and then Palladino, Andreassi and Caccia come home 3rd in the car that was victorious, as I mentioned, at Monza last time out. So the cars in that order come home as the top 3. So we've got a chance to look back on the highlights of the 2nd round of the series. So the race initially led by Frank Kekkeler as he stormed his way through Copse Corner, and behind we had some great battles, but of course in that first stint Marcus Paltler drove the Marc VDS Racing BMW, lost a couple of places early on, and he was involved in a good battle with the McLaren that was started by Matt Bell, the United Autosports car. Eventually will drop into the gravel. Another car that really went strongly in the early part of the race was Koen Wouters in the Mercedes, and he was busy battling with BMWs early on in the race. Matt Bell was hard at work in the United Autosports McLaren, but we'd soon lose a front-running car because Mike Hesmans, who'd already had a spin, had fuel pressure problems that put the BMW out of the race very early on. Second driver for the leading BMW was Greg Franchi. He rejoined in the lead of the race, but he couldn't hang on in there because Bas Linders really pushed hard and worked his way through into the lead of the race. Stormed by up on the inside at Club Corner, and the BMW would drop back further because Laurens Vanthoor came through to pick up second place going into Stowe Corner, and the Audi before the end of the stint would grab the lead. David Brabham made a very rare error, found himself in the gravel bed and lost many laps as the marshal said, "We ain't pushing you," and David said, "Yes you are." After consultation with the race director, the car was given a shove, but then we had the change for the lead because the Audi dived through on the inside at Stowe Corner. Laurens Vanthoor, the ex-Formula 3 racer, leant on the BMW a little bit. He still came through to take over the lead, but it was a very different situation in the last hour of the race because the lead changed in the pits. The BMW blasted away first. Edward Sandstrom got out behind. There wasn't that big a gap between them, but it didn't half grow. Over a minute at one stage during the last hour of the race. Problems late in the race for the ART Grand Prix McLaren in the hands of Gregoire Lemoustier and Duncan Tapping. And then right at the very end, a change for the lead of the Gentleman Trophy with a win for the Audi of Bender, Mangs and Brunstedt. Victory at Silverstone for Marc VDS Racing. It's been another fabulous round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. We'll see you at Paul Ricard.